4 years earlier, on the 7th day after I gave birth to Linlin, Linfeng stood 7 paces from my bed and said, "You have borne a legitimate son. Your duty and mine are fulfilled. From this day forward I will not step into your room again." He said that because of him, my younger half-sister, Cui Jin, had been forced to lower herself and marry Zhou Rei. He claimed that debt was his to repay, then he turned and left. The hem of his blue robe brushed over the threshold, and he never looked back. For the next 4 years, he truly never entered my room again. I neither cried nor made a scene. In my previous life, I had spent 8 years as a mediator in a district court. I had seen too many heartless men like him. From that day onward, I began keeping accounts. Later, Zhou Rei was demoted and sent away from the capital. Lin Feng brought Cui Jin and her son into the guest courtyard of our residence so that he could look after them. Once they moved in, he did not even bother pretending anymore. Every day, fine food and beautiful toys were sent to the guest courtyard. He cherished Cui Jin's son as though he were his own. Yet he could not be bothered to spare a glance for his actual son. I once went to reason with him. He merely said, "Feeling wronged? Then endure it." "This is what you owe Jin?" I asked. "Linlin is your own flesh and blood. Do you not even love your own child? He is only 3. This is the age when he needs his father's affection most." After a brief silence, Lin Feng replied, "That is also the calamity brought about by a mother like you. A mother's debt is repaid by her child. It is only natural." I took a deep breath, turned away, and continued my records. I had begun keeping records when Linlin was 6 months old. Over the 3.5 years since then, I had filled 3 large baskets. They contained everything. The ruby jewelry Lin Feng sent to the guest courtyard, the 30 taels of silver he sent there each month, the seasonal clothes, and even how he divided the Yangcheng Lake hairy crabs between the children. I recorded how many times he tossed Cui Jin's son into the air, and how many times he told his own son, "It is cold outside. Go back to your room." Every act and every item went into those notebooks. When I gathered the records together, the conclusion was perfectly clear. This marriage could be dissolved, and my son could have another father. That morning, I had already sent someone to the Zhou family in the west part of the city, inviting Cui Jin's parents-in-law to come to our residence the next day to discuss a matter. The following day, the guest courtyard was indeed in an uproar. Zhou Rei had been demoted and sent out of the capital, but his parents were still in the city and needed their daughter-in-law to serve them. They stormed to our door. They demanded their grandson and insisted on taking Cui Jin back to wait on them. Old Madame Zhou blocked the entrance to the guest courtyard, weeping and cursing. She called Cui Jin a bringer of misfortune who had caused her son to lose his office. She accused her of abandoning her in-laws and running with her child to the home of her elder sister's husband. She called it unforgivable filial impiety, then loudly insulted Cui Jin and accused her and her brother-in-law of having an improper relationship. Lin Feng stepped forward to argue and received a blow to the arm from old Madame Zhou's staff. Meanwhile, I sat in my own courtyard drinking tea as the chaos next door turned everything upside down. Cui Yun paced anxiously beside me. "Madam, aren't you going over to look? The less I interfere in the guest courtyard, the more chaotic it will become. The more chaotic it is there, the easier it will be for me to negotiate here." In mediation, the worst mistake was deciding things for the parties involved. One had to wait until reality had slapped them hard enough that they came to you of their own accord to bargain. At the time, Lin Feng protected Cui Jin because he believed himself to be her savior. But Zhou Rei's parents had come to make a scene, which put him under unbearable pressure. As her brother-in-law and a man outside the Zhou family, what right did he have to prevent her from returning to serve her parents-in-law? He had neither proper standing nor any defensible argument. Outsiders would only say that all the books he had read had gone to waste. By noon, the commotion next door finally subsided. Lin Feng returned to the main courtyard holding his injured arm. As soon as he entered, he saw me peeling walnut kernels at the table. Linlin sat beside me practicing his large characters, each stroke neat and proper. Lin Feng stood there for a moment before demanding, "The guest courtyard is in such chaos. Aren't you going to take a look?" I put the walnut kernels on a plate. "Old Madame Zhou has come to take her grandson. That is only natural. Cui Jin, as her daughter, returning to serve her is also only natural, but Zhou Rei is not there. Jin is a weak woman, and her parents-in-law are harsh, troublesome, and unreasonable. She will surely suffer." I wiped my hands and looked up at him. "Lin Feng, let me ask you something. Why do you think old Madame Zhou chose this exact moment to come and cause trouble?" He frowned. I continued. "There are rumors outside that Zhou Rei's case implicated him deeply. He may have no hope of regaining office in this lifetime. The Zhou family wants to take their grandson back and raise him, at least to preserve their family line. If you keep blocking them like this, people will think you are the child's father. Lin Feng's face changed at once. I had Cui Yun take Linlin away. Before he left, Linlin looked at Lin Feng with hurt in his eyes. Yet Lin Feng still did not give him so much as a glance. I told my son, remember what mother told you. Some kinds of affection cannot be forced. It was cruel to say that to a 4-year-old child, but some festering wounds healed better when opened early. Tears swam in Linlin's eyes. He pressed his lips together, hastily wiped them, and left. I pointed to the official's hat chair beside me. Sit down, we need to talk. Lin Feng resumed his usual cold, impatient manner. Talk about what? Are you going to say again that this is improper and that is unreasonable? If it had not been for you. I raised my brows and cut him off. Cui Jin and her son have already been taken back by the Zhou family. Did you come merely to blame me for what happened years ago? He choked for a moment, and his tone softened considerably. Tomorrow, go to the Zhou residence yourself and warn them. Jin is gentle by nature. I am afraid her parents-in-law will torment her. Fine. But I have one condition. His face immediately darkened. You are making demands? Jin is your own sister. When your own sister is in trouble, not only do you refuse to help of your own accord, you even set conditions. Cui Yao, when did you become so cold and heartless? I rolled my eyes. I truly could not bear it anymore. Lin Feng, you have read the teachings of the sages and speak of benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, and trust. What you are doing is using kinship to pressure me. You invoke sisterhood, yet you never mention how much you have shifted to the guest courtyard over the years, or how much of my own interests you have harmed. Is that what the sages taught you? Or do you know very well and only pretend not to? And what of being sisters? Who says sisters must love and help each other? I stepped closer and jabbed a finger hard against his chest, making him take a step back. She is only my half-sister. I also have a stepmother. Have you never heard that where there is a stepmother, there is a stepfather? Why do you assume that Cui Jin and I share deep sisterly affection? Why do you assume that, under a stepmother's control, I was allowed to choose my own husband? I shut my mouth before I revealed every thought in my heart. Shame on me. The greatest skill of a mediator was not persuading people or recounting their misery. It was making both sides see the blind spots they themselves could not see. Lin Feng believed that protecting Cui Jin was proof of deep devotion. Yet he was an unrelated man preventing his half-sister-in-law from returning to serve her parents-in-law. The matter itself was enough to invite public criticism. That was why he had come to me. What I needed to do was place the 3 matters that required negotiation before him, not trade insults merely because it felt satisfying. As someone who had been a court mediator, I knew that when words failed, arguing was useless. The other person had to see clearly that, apart from signing, he had no other road to take. Old Madame Zhou had shouted loudly enough for the entire alley to hear. Lin Feng pitied Cui Jin, yet he did not dare violate the principles recognized by the world by stopping her from returning to her husband's family. In the end, he could only watch the gentlewoman he loved return to what he believed was a den of danger. Then he became frantic and ran to me for a solution. He was plainly asking for my help, yet he insisted on suppressing me first, ordering me afterward, and trying to bind me with morality. He regarded his devotion as a virtue. But any devotion that harmed another person's interests was worthless and had to come at a price. I placed before him a letter severing the father-son relationship, a document I had spent half a year preparing. Sign it. Once you sign, I will go to the Zhou family for you. He took it and his eyes widened. A severance letter? He gave a cold laugh. You want my son to cut ties with me? Cui Yao, have you finished making trouble? This is not making trouble. Once you sign, Linlin will have nothing to do with you. Love whomever you wish. Move as much silver as you wish to the guest courtyard. No one will interfere, he said. Lin Han is my son. I pushed the document another inch toward him. You would rather love someone else's son than your own. Cutting ties is good for both of you. You will no longer need to pretend, and he will no longer need to wait. Sign it, and father and son will have no ties left between them. He was silent for a moment, then suddenly laughed. Cui Yao, why do you think I care for Tinger? I love the person and therefore care for the child. It is Cui Jin I love, and it is her circumstances I pity. As for Lin Han, he lifted his eyes to me, and the ruthlessness in them was as though he had seen through everything. I did neglect him, but that is entirely the fault of a mother like you. You created this sin. A mother's debt is repaid by her child. That is only natural. You ache for him, but who aches for Jin? Only a selfish, faithless man could say such things. He continued, and you are a grown woman. Yet you compete for affection and become jealous of a child. How impressive. I merely care for Tinger a little more, and you make such a scene. Have your upbringing and dignity been fed to the dogs? I was not angry, I laughed instead. Lin Feng stared at me in confusion. What are you laughing at? At your stupidity. Cui Jin's child is surnamed Zhou, not Lin. Raise him for 10 years or 20, and he will still be another man's son. No matter how well you treat him, he cannot support you in old age or send you to your final rest. You may pour out your heart for him, but the family he will honor is the Zhou clan, and the ancestors he will glorify are Zhou ancestors. Lin Feng fell silent. I continued. You do not love your own son, yet you love another manus. A fool like you has no right to be my child's father. The more reason for you two to sever ties. That way, you can openly love someone else's son. I had left him speechless, and he finally flew into a rage. You have come up with this scheme only to use our child as leverage against me. Let me tell you this, even if I have never held him, Lin Han is still my son. If he severs ties with me, he will have no paternal clan behind him. Without a paternal clan, no one will recommend him for the civil service examinations. So no one will support him in officialdom, and no good family will marry a daughter to him. In a fit of anger, you are gambling away the rest of his life. Think it through. As though he had finally recovered a point, the corners of his mouth lifted slightly as he pushed the severance letter back. Put it away. I will pretend you never said this. I did not move or reach for it. You are right. Lin does need a paternal clan behind him, but he will only sever ties with you, not with the Lin family. What do you mean? I will have him sever ties with you and then adopt him into the line of Lin Wan. Would that not be best for everyone? Lin Wan, whose courtesy name was Xingji, was the third master of the main branch. He had served as a supervising secretary at the Ministry of Justice and often attended the emperor. When rebels ambushed the emperor, he took a blade for him and died. The emperor remembered Lin Wan's merit in saving him and bestowed generous rewards, but Lin Wan had never married before he died. The emperor therefore ordered the Lin clan to choose a child from among its members to be adopted under Lin Wan's name, so that this meritorious official would not be lonely in the underworld, and would at least have descendants to continue his incense and offerings. When Lin Feng heard this news, he had actually sighed with regret. He even complained to me, if you had been more capable and born another son, we could have adopted the younger son to cousin Lin Wan. Wouldn't that have made our ties with the main branch even closer? At the time my heart stirred, and I began to think seriously. Later, adoption filled my mind. If Lin Han were adopted to Lin Wan, he would have a new father and a new future. Lin Wan had 2 full-blooded elder brothers in the main branch, both serving at court, and both deeply fond of their younger brother. If Lin became Lin Wan's son, his 2 uncles would certainly value him. He might even attract the emperor's attention. The moment Lin Feng heard Lin Wan's name, he first froze and then flew into a furious rage. I do not agree. The veins at his temples stood out. His face twisted as he tore the severance letter to pieces. Cui Yao, you are dreaming. Lin Han is my only son and my only legitimate son. If I send my legitimate son away for adoption, what will the clan think of me when they say I sold my son for advancement in order to curry favor with the main branch? From Lin Feng's position, he could never casually give his only legitimate son away for adoption. It concerned his reputation and his line of succession. Even though he did not love Lin, he could not ignore the principle. In my former life, I had seen plenty of people slam mediation agreements onto a table, but after smashing them down, they would pick them up and sign. 7 out of 10 did. Lin Feng's chest heaved and the veins at his temples throbbed as though he were a trapped beast. Lin Han is my only legitimate son, my only son. If I send him away for adoption, what will the elders think? What will outsiders say? They will say I sold my son for advancement and clung to the main branch. How can I still face the world? His eyes actually reddened a little. I said nothing and waited for his anger to pass. When a party was overwhelmed by emotion, every additional word only added oil to the fire. One had to let him rage and say everything before speaking. Sure enough, after Lin Feng finished, he gasped several times and turned his face away. I asked, have you ever considered what road Cui Jin has left? He whirled back. Do not use Jin against me. Cui Jin has taken her son back to the Zhou family. Have you considered what she will face there? His lips moved, but no sound came out. I stepped half a pace closer. Old Madame Zhou is a tyrannical woman who cannot be reasoned with. Cui Jin and her son have stayed in our home for more than 2 years. You have treated Cui Jin so well and cared so much for her son. Old Madame Zhou must have suspected something long ago. Before I finished, Lin Feng shot to his feet and shouted, Nonsense! Cui Jin and I are entirely innocent. I only pity her. Her husband was demoted, and her parents-in-law are particularly harsh and difficult. I was afraid she would suffer in her husband's home, so I let her stay here, temporarily. Temporarily for 2 years, I said calmly. Guilt flashed over his face, followed by greater indignation. Cui Yao, are even you turning rumors into truth? I have reasons for treating Cui Jin well. If it had not been for you, I cut him off and took the initiative. If the Zhou family files a complaint saying you have taken possession of a colleague's wife and kept another family's descendant from them, will you also explain to them that you had reasons for treating your half-sister-in-law well? Will you dare say publicly, if the Cui family had not chosen me first, the one I married would have been my half-sister-in-law? Zhou Wei was only demoted and sent away from the capital. He is not dead. Cui Jin is still the Zhou family's daughter-in-law, and you are merely her brother-in-law by marriage. Yet you brought another family's wife and son to live in your residence. They eat your food and use your possessions. When their family comes to your door and accuses you of desiring your half-sister-in-law and ruining the reputation of a Zhou daughter-in-law, will you really tell outsiders, Cui Jin and I are innocent? Do not make trouble out of nothing? Do you dare? Lin Feng's face slowly drained white. I looked at him and continued, you think you are protecting Cui Jin out of devotion, but what do outsiders see? A man keeping his wife's younger half-sister in his residence, visiting the guest courtyard night after night, and ignoring even his own legitimate son. If that spreads, perhaps you do not care, but Cui Jin's road will be cut off. Her child will also be suspected of being yours. Do you think old Madame Zhou will spare her and the child? He clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. I said, I can go to the Zhou family and bring Cui Jin and her son back. But you must sign the severance letter. His brow twitched sharply. He was clearly wavering. I stepped back 2 paces and handed him a bundle of records I had prepared long ago. These are the times you neglected your child over the past 4 years. Then I took out another bundle. These are the times you cared for Cui Jin's son during the past 2 years, along with every item you sent to them. He turned a few pages, and his face changed drastically. You even recorded this? I looked at him calmly. If I show these records to the clan elders, do you think they will call you foolish? If I submit them to court, do you think your reputation will be ruined throughout the capital? And tell me, will old Madame Zhou think that, since you have treated her grandson so well, he might be your bloodline? How will you explain that then? His face changed again and again. He nearly could not stand. I sat down once more. Everything that needed to be said had been said. I let him think. When facing someone stubborn and unreasonable, one could never allow them to lead the conversation. One had to seize the initiative, present the strongest evidence, and speak of the person or interest they cared about most, so they understood the consequences of continued obstinacy. The room remained silent for the time it took to drink a cup of tea. At last Lin Feng asked hoarsely, if you are going to bring Cui Jin and her son back, why must I sever ties with Linlin? I set down my cup. Linwen has no heir. The main branch wishes to choose a child from the clan to continue his line. If Linlin is adopted there, he will become the legitimate son of the main branch. His 2 uncles will certainly raise and guide him wholeheartedly. His future in the examinations and official service will be 10 times better than it would be by your side. He is my son. He soon will not be. You have always blamed me for taking you away from Cui Jin and forcing her to suffer with Zhou Rui, and neither you nor your heart has ever had a place for Linlin and me. Then, I will simply fulfill your wish. Sign the severance letter so that the child can be adopted into Lin Wan's line without dispute. Would that not serve everyone? He suddenly asked. Isn't the child the most important thing in your life? Can you bear to send him to the main branch? I had been waiting for that question. It was time to show what I was truly capable of as a mediator. I smiled faintly and produced another document I had prepared. He glanced at it, and his pupils shrank. A divorce agreement? You want to divorce me? What else? If I send the child away for adoption and bring Cui Jin and her son into the residence, why should I remain here? To be an eyesore to you both. I never said I would bring Cui Jin. Stop saying one thing while meaning another. My voice was even. The more you say, the more false it sounds. He fell silent. He wanted to refute me but could not find suitable words. I stated my final condition. We will divorce and you will write an additional severance letter. Linlin will be adopted to the main branch without any ties left behind. Then you can openly bring Cui Jin and her son back. No one will criticize you from then on. Without your lawful wife and son standing in your way, you may arrange things however you please. He looked up suddenly. If I divorce you, the clan elders will negotiate on my behalf. They will not agree to the adoption. Lin Feng was no longer as furious as before, but he still said, Giving my only legitimate son to the main branch will sound terrible. I also need my dignity. I do not agree. Cui Yao, even if you talk until you are blue in the face, it will be useless. I did not argue. I merely watched him in silence. In mediation, the most frightening moment was when a party suddenly declared, I do not agree. It did not always mean that person truly disagreed. It usually meant the offer was insufficient and the benefits were not great enough. Will you no longer care about Cui Jin? I drew my final weapon. You know exactly what old Madame Zhou is like. Cui Jin has been taken back to the Zhou family. Who knows what torment she is suffering? Old Madame Zhou keeps insisting that the two of you are not innocent. Do you think Cui Jin may be subjected to the lethal pig cage punishment? Lin Feng's face changed completely. I added more bait. Sign, and I will leave for the Zhou residence at once. Otherwise, with old Madame Zhou's vicious nature, Cui Jin may not survive even one night. As expected, he could not sit still. He reached out for the brush. He signed the divorce agreement quickly, but when he came to the severance letter, he hesitated. Even if my son is adopted to Linwan, he is still my son. Perhaps we should not write this severance letter. The man disgusted me so much that I wanted to slap him. I forced the impulse down. You had better sign it now. Once you do, I will immediately go to the Zhou family and bring Cui Jin home. It is more proper for me to act than for you to show yourself. His expression wavered. I continued to entice him. You and Cui Jin are both young. Later, you can have 10 more children, even 8 sons. Why would you lack Linlin alone? He wavered again and picked up the brush reluctantly. When he still would not sign, I said, Sign, my son, and I will not blame either of you. After all, I owe you both. His whole body suddenly relaxed, as though he had finally made up his mind. He signed decisively and pressed his private seal onto the documents. He did not dare look at me. In a low voice, he said, I know I have wronged you. I will make it up to you later. Can we go to the Zhou family to bring them back now? I carefully folded the divorce agreement and my son's severance letter, handed them to Cui Yun, and told her to lock them in a chest. Then I held out my hand to Lin Feng. You have seen old Madame Zhou's character. To make her write a release letter for Cui Jin, we must give her enough benefit. I need something to take with me to negotiate. Lin Feng frowned. How much do you want? 5,000 taels of silver in cash, plus a chest of jewelry. Give me the pair of jade, inlaid gold bracelets in your study and that ruby jewelry set. For the past 2 years, he had sent 30 taels a month to the guest courtyard. Together with the assorted items, the total was worth about 5,000 taels. His expression changed slightly. That jewelry set was originally. It was what I intended to give Cui Jin, but I had not yet given it to her. Without changing expression, I said, it is useful now. Someone like old Madame Zhou will not release her grip without real silver and gold. If you still hesitate, and old Madame Zhou grows furious and causes Cui Jin's death, it will be too late for regret. Lin Feng's cheek twitched. 5,000 taels was no small sum. The properties his parents had left him brought in only a little more than 1,000 taels a year. I deliberately added, did you not say you loved Cui Jin with all your heart? These are only worldly possessions in exchange for her freedom, yet you hesitate. In my former life, I had seen too many men who were stingy with their wives and children, but spent money like water for the unattainable white moonlight in their hearts. For such a man, no amount of money was too much for the woman he could not have. Besides, I had already pushed him to the summit of moral obligation. In the end, he flung his sleeve and went to the study. He could not produce 5,000 taels at once, so he had to mortgage the Lin family's shops and fields. When the property deeds reached my hand, he seemed to realize only then that he had fallen into the bloody trap I had set. His voice trembled. You induced me step by step to sign the severance letter and divorce agreement, and now you are taking my property. You prepared this long ago and led me into the trap one step at a time. At least he had finally figured it out. I only asked, have you not gotten what you wanted? He pressed his lips together and said nothing, but conflict and pain flashed clearly across his face. Naturally. To rescue Cui Jin from suffering, he had paid far too much. So much that I almost felt sorry for him. I comforted him. You will soon be able to be openly with your beloved Cui Jin. Are you not happy? He kept his brows tightly furrowed and did not answer. I ignored him, smiled, and led my maidservants out. The Zhou family lived far to the west of the city in a small 2-room courtyard. Years earlier, Cui Jin herself had bought the place with her dowry. Now it bore the Zhou surname, and Cui Jin, who had paid for it, was about to be driven out. Truly, it took a wicked person to deal with another wicked person. 2 fierce-looking old women squatted outside the gate. One look told me they had been brought up from the Zhou family's old hometown. When I entered, old Madame Zhou was sitting cross-legged on a heated brick bed, gnawing a chicken leg with grease all over her hands. She did not rise when she saw me. "Oh, Madam Lin honors us with her presence," she grinned, with strands of meat caught between her teeth. "What is it? Has your own man forced you to beg forgiveness on behalf of your younger sister?" I did not answer. I simply had the servants place a chest on the table and open it. 2 silver ingots lay neatly inside, with the ruby jewelry set beside them. Under the lamp, it gleamed with brilliant light. Old Madame Zhou's chicken leg dropped with a slap back onto the plate, and her eyes went blank with astonishment. I sat down and poured myself a cup of tea. "Old Madame Zhou, I did not come today to quarrel. I came to make a deal." She came back to herself, pushed the chicken leg aside, wiped her hands, and let her eyes dart around. "What deal? Your daughter-in-law. Do you still want to keep Cuijin?" Old Madame Zhou spat on the ground. "That cursed woman brought disaster until my son lost his office. She is greedy and lazy, and she has put a green hat on my son, made a fool of him with another man. Our Zhou family has had 8 lifetimes of bad luck to marry such a scourge. Then divorce her." Old Madame Zhou froze as though she had not heard clearly. I pushed the silver chest toward her. 100 taels, plus this jewelry set. "On behalf of your son, write a release letter and cast Cuijin out. From today on, whether she lives or dies will have nothing to do with the Zhou family. Her son belongs to you. Take him back to your hometown and raise him. If Zhou Rui later regains office, it will be easier for him to arrange a new marriage without such a burden at his side." Old Madame Zhou's eyes moved back and forth. Her hand stretched involuntarily toward the chest of silver, stopped halfway, then pulled back. She looked at me warily. "Are you trying to trick me? That cursed woman is in your home. Shouldn't you wish for her to leave and get out of your sight? Why would you spend your own silver to seek a release letter for her?" I took a sip of tea and answered leisurely. "Old madam, let me speak honestly. Cuijin troubles me more in my home than she troubles you, but Linfeng is deeply attached to her. To marry her, he no longer even wants his own wife and son. I have divorced Linfeng. I came because he offered me something in return. I receive the silver and you receive 100 taels. We both benefit." Old Madame Zhou still hesitated, but her hand had already settled on a silver ingot and would not let go. I lowered my voice. "Old madam, let me calculate another account for you. Zhou Rui was demoted and sent away from the capital for no light offense. His Majesty showed mercy in the first place. But if someone later revives the matter and says his wife was not proper with another man, do you think Zhou Rui will still have any hope of turning his life around?" Old Madame Zhou's face changed abruptly. I said evenly, "People outside are already saying that your son suffers away from the capital while his wife is cherished in my residence and served good food every day. If someone at the censorate submits a memorial accusing the wife of a disgraced official of clinging to powerful people, Zhou Rui can forget about returning to the capital in this life. Think carefully. Do you want your grandson to become an official one day or to remain an ordinary commoner?" Old Madame Zhou's lips trembled, and she slapped the table. "That wretch, she was no good." Then unwillingness flashed in her eyes. "If I truly divorce her, one that let her marry into the Lin family and enjoy fortune. I absolutely will not let her benefit. She was exactly the sort of person who would rather harm herself than let someone else live in peace." I had seen many people like that, so I said slowly, "Even if she remarries Lin Feng, people will say she abandoned her poor husband for glory and wealth and will point at her back in scorn. Your son, meanwhile, will be the one people pity. If he regains office later, no one will dare say a single word against him." Old Madame Zhou panted heavily and remained silent for a long time. Then she snatched up a silver ingot, bit it to test it, and lifted the ruby jewelry under the lamp to inspect it. At last she gritted her teeth and nodded. Write it now." Though she was not literate, she recited the terms of divorcing a wife with surprising fluency. She must have rehearsed it in her heart countless times. She dictated, and I wrote. At the place for a signature, she pressed her fingerprint down viciously. "Old madam, you are indeed decisive." Old Madame Zhou was clutching the silver ingot and tucking it into her bodice. When she raised her head and met my eyes, her own were full of dark, rolling hatred like a venomous snake, with the ruthless message that the matter was far from over. I shrugged. Whether she hated Cuijin or Lin Feng was none of my concern. In my previous life, a mediator's task had been to push both sides into signing an agreement. After they signed, however they handled one another was their private matter. From beginning to end, I did not want to decide who lived well or badly. I wanted only the divorce agreement stamped with an official seal and a name entered into the main branch's genealogy. Whether old Madame Zhou would come to make trouble later or how severely she would make trouble was something Lin Feng would have to worry about himself. When Cui Jin was released, both her cheeks were swollen red, her hair was in disarray, and half a sleeve had been torn away. She looked as though she had just been pulled from a mud pit. When she lifted her head and saw me, the light in her eyes went out at once. "Where is Lin Feng?" "He did not come." She staggered and had to brace herself against the wall. I had Cui Yun bring her a cloak. Cui Jin put it on, bit her lip, and avoided my eyes awkwardly. For her, being seen by me in such a state was harder to bear than the beating she had suffered. "Sister, did you come to laugh at me?" "I came to tell you something," I answered flatly. "Lin Feng has signed a divorce agreement." She froze. First came confusion, then an irrepressible flicker of relief in her eyes. Still, she continued her performance. "Sister, I have wronged you. To take you out of the Zhou family, I gave old Madame Zhou quite a bit of cash, a ruby jewelry set and a pair of jade, inlaid gold bracelets. I flicked dust from my skirt. To let you enter the Lin residence cleanly, Lin Feng has practically emptied his estate." Cui Jin's expression changed again and again. She mourned the loss of the silver, yet was secretly moved by Lin Feng's willingness to ruin himself to save her. She straightened her back, wrapped herself in the cloak and walked toward the gate with light, smug steps. At the gate, she looked back once. "Sister, do not blame me. No one yields where love is concerned." Leaning against the doorframe, I replied, "I do not blame you." "Go carefully." She left, moving so quickly that she seemed afraid I would change my mind. Cui Yun spat in anger. "She is still so pleased with herself. She should be pleased with herself. A man has emptied his estate to save her. You would not find another woman in the whole capital with such power to captivate a man. But after she marries him, where their silver will come from is no concern of mine. Tomorrow, we still have to go to Shuntian Prefecture." The divorce agreement and the severance letter were stamped with the government's great seal. With Lin Han, I immediately went to find the eldest sister-in-law of the Lin main branch. Sitting before her, I did not rush into the main subject. First, I helped her sort out the accounts for the entire afternoon, calculated the tangled debts in the Lin family's common funds, and worked out the capital turnover for the silk shop in the second half of the year. My eldest sister-in-law moved the beads of her abacus. The more she calculated, the more smoothly it went. At last she sighed, "Thank goodness for you. I have had such a headache facing these books alone for days." I smiled but said nothing. In my former life, the first thing I learned as a mediator was not how to persuade people to make peace. It was how to make the person involved feel that you stood on their side. Sorting accounts was an easy favor, but that small favor meant that, when my eldest sister-in-law heard whatever I said next, she would already be inclined to believe me before I even began. When the accounts were closed, I patted Linlin's back and told him to recite a passage from the 1,000-character classic for her. The child's voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. My eldest sister-in-law praised him, then frowned. "You have taught him well, but he is too timid." I had been waiting for those words. I put on a face of grief and misery. "A child's timidity is not born in him. He is 4 years old. Guess how many times his biological father has held him." Cui Yun led several male servants carrying in 3 large baskets, each filled with bundles of paper. I untied one bundle and handed it to my eldest sister-in-law. She turned 2 pages, and her gaze stopped. I began recording things when the child was 6 months old. Every excessive word Lin Feng said and every act he committed toward my son and me is written clearly here. These are records from 3 full years, 78 pages. My eldest sister-in-law did not have time to read every page, but after seeing only the first few, her face darkened. As she turned the pages faster, her expression grew harsher and harsher. "How can this be husband and wife? They are plainly strangers, less than strangers." She slapped the table in fury. "How can he treat his wife and child like this? Eldest sister-in-law, look at this too." I handed over another stack. That stack recorded the silver and objects he had sent there, as well as every visit he had made. It ran to 690 pages. After she had only seen the first few pages, her chest rose and fell with anger. I handed her another stack. These are the times Lin Feng held Cui Jin's son. The exact days he tossed the child into the air, carried him on his shoulders and spun him around, and took him horseback riding along half the street. Everyone is recorded by date and by time. The records from 2 years fill 460 pages. As for what Lin Feng did for his own son and me, there is almost nothing. After my eldest sister-in-law turned only 3 pages, her hands began to tremble. "That Lin Feng, is he a pig? He does not love his own son, but he loves another man's child." In my former life, I had handled at least 800 divorce cases, if not 1,000. Men would talk about how much they loved their children and contributed to their families, but the moment the account books were opened, their true faces appeared. I had seen such cases too often. From the beginning, I knew words were empty, and black ink on white paper was real. Only records like these were persuasive enough. The more my eldest sister-in-law read, the angrier she became. Has he gone mad? I placed the divorce agreement and severance letter side by side before her. The official seals were clear, and the black ink stood against white paper. She sprang to her feet at once, slapped the table, and called for servants. Go invite the first master. Call all the clan elders, and we must break his legs. I caught her wrist. Eldest sister-in-law, do not rush. I did not come to ask you to beat him. She glared at me while breathing hard. I drew Linlin in front of me and stroked his head. I came to have my son adopted as Xingji's heir. She froze. She looked from me to Linlin, and her eyes suddenly reddened. Lin Wan had been the younger brother she herself had raised. He had died young, leaving great property with no heir. Adoption had been mentioned in the clan before, but who would give up a legitimate son? As for a concubine-born son, she believed that would wrong Xingji beneath the earth. Can you bear it, younger sister? The divorce agreement and severance letter both bear Lin Feng's own fingerprint and seal. I pushed the documents toward her. If Linlin becomes Xingji's son, it will be clean and beyond criticism. My eldest sister-in-law opened her mouth, and tears spilled down her cheeks. She pulled Linlin tightly into her arms, stroked the back of his head, then looked up at me. This is wonderful. Xingji finally has an heir. Footsteps sounded outside. Lin Zheng and Lin Yan entered one after the other. My eldest sister-in-law wiped her tears and pointed at the baskets overflowing with paper. Look at the fine work your younger brother Lin Feng has done. Lin Zheng turned 2 pages, his brows nodding. Lin Yan read the divorce agreement and severance letter 3 times, his face turning green. My eldest sister-in-law promptly pushed Linlin forward. Test your nephew. Lin Zheng's expression softened. He asked Linlin several questions from the 1,000-character classic. Linlin answered in a small voice, looking at me timidly before every reply. When Lin Zheng finished, he sighed deeply and reached out to touch Linlin's head. Too timid. My eldest sister-in-law immediately said, when a child is not loved by his father and watches his biological father hold someone else's child every day, how can he not become timid? From now on, you two should take him out more. Let him learn riding and archery gradually. He will grow stronger. Lin Zheng and Lin Yan looked at one another, then looked at the plainly documented favoritism. They both nodded. Only then did my eldest sister-in-law sit down, wipe her eyes, pour a cup of tea, and push it toward me. She suddenly laughed. Come to think of it, you have divorced Lin Feng and are free now. Linlin is still small and needs his mother to teach him, and become a widow of a distinguished family. The entire room froze. Lin Zheng frowned. This may not be appropriate. To remain a widow for life. I lifted my tea and smiled. After marrying Lin Feng for 5 years, was I not already a widow for those years? The room fell silent for a moment. I lowered my head and smoothed Linlin's hair. I am willing to marry Xingji, keep this household, and keep this child. My eldest sister-in-law clasped my hand with one hand. Then marry Xingji. From now on, you will be the 3rd madam of the main branch, my younger sister-in-law. I will cherish you. Across from us, Lin Zheng and Lin Yan exchanged a look and said no more. Inwardly, I breathed a sigh of relief. As long as the evidence was prepared well enough, even a judge biased toward men or women would have to grant the divorce, however reluctantly. Apart from recording Lin Feng's favoritism day after day, I had done nothing else. But it truly worked. I had gained sympathy, arranged my son adoption, and planned my own escape route, all for no more than 30 taels. That sum covered the paper, brushes, ink and inkstones for the basketfuls of records, as well as the wages for people hired to keep records. In 8 years as a mediator in my previous life, I had successfully mediated 1427 cases. Not one was settled by crying. Everyone depended on black ink on white paper. When the genealogy was spread out on the ancestral altar, the expressions in the hall of clan elders were truly a spectacle. The first thing I presented was the divorce agreement. An old granduncle from the 2nd branch, more than 70 years old, narrowed his eyes and looked at it 3 times. His hand shook so badly that he almost dropped his reading glasses onto the genealogy. A divorce? That boy Lin Feng divorced his wife without consulting the clan? Lin Zheng's face darkened, and he presented the severance letter. The 6th granduncle of the 3rd branch, normally the steadiest of men, stared at it with wide eyes and cried out, he does not even want his son. He has severed blood ties? That boy Lin Feng. The hall instantly erupted. Some elders slammed the table. Some blew their beards and glared, and some immediately wanted to grab their canes and rush to Yulin Alley to beat someone. My eldest sister-in-law stood to one side and waited until they had cursed enough. Then she waved a hand and had the basketfuls of paper carried in. Uncles, do not be so eager to beat and kill. There is something else here. Please look. The papers in the baskets were the records I had accumulated over 3.5 years. Everything was categorized and tied with string for easy review. The first bundle was a tally of every time Lin Feng held Cui Jin as son during the past 2 years. It filled 2 thick bundles, with the times accurate down to the hour. There were also detailed records of the silver Lin Feng spent on the guest courtyard during those 2 years, and a list of his acts of care toward his legitimate son, Lin Han. The former filled 3 large bundles. The latter was only a few sheets with scattered words upon them. At the bottom was a note. All of the above had been cross-checked and verified without error by the Lin household's cook, gatekeeper, Cui Yun, and the maids in the guest courtyard. The hall fell silent. The old granduncle took the stack and turned one page, the muscles in his face twitching. 6th granduncle leaned in to see the distinct page, his mouth hanging open. The cousin uncle from the 3rd branch who had shouted loudest earlier turned to the 3rd page, stared at the blank space for more than 10 breaths, then let out a heavy sigh and put the paper down. No one said another word. My eldest sister-in-law took out a 3rd item from her sleeve, an inkstone Lin Wan had loved most in life. She placed it beside the genealogy and pushed me half a step forward. Uncles, we can discuss Lin Feng later. At present, there is a more important matter. Are we truly going to let Xingji's branch die out? Lin's adoption as Xingji's son is certain, but think about it. He is only 3.5. If his mother is not there to raise him, the main branch consists entirely of men serving at court. Who will teach him to read? Who will tuck in his bedding at night? The elders looked at one another. My eldest sister-in-law shifted her tones, speaking suddenly half a beat faster. Cui Yao is free now. She has divorced Lin Feng. The severance letter clearly says that the 2 of them have no ties from this day forward. She is no longer Lin Feng's person, but she is still Lin's mother. Uncles, tell us fairly, in the entire capital, who is more suitable than the child's own mother to raise the sole seed of Xingji's line? The old granduncle stroked his beard without speaking, his brows drawn into a knot. 6th granduncle tested the waters. Then what do you mean? My eldest sister-in-law clapped her hands and smiled until her eyes curved. Since Lin has already been recorded under Xingji's name, why not record Cui Yao there too? From now on, she will not be Lin Feng's wife but Xingji's widow. She can preserve Xingji's line, raise Xingji's son, and oversee Xingji's property. Would that not be best for all? The hall exploded again, even louder than before. The old granduncle struck the ground with his cane. Absurd! How can a living woman marry a dead man? 6th granduncle shook his head as well. No, people will laugh at us if this gets out. My eldest sister-in-law did not change expression. Granduncle, I will ask only 3 things. First, Xingji's branch is dying out. Can any of you sleep peacefully in the middle of the night? The old granduncle's cane stopped in midair, she continued. Second, that heartless brute Lin Feng has abandoned both wife and son. Cui Yao is a free woman. If she does not marry Xingji, are we to let her remarry into another surname with Lin? Will Xingji's property follow the child away, or stay behind? If it stays, who will manage it? If the child leaves with his mother, what meaning does this adoption have? The elders' expressions changed slightly as they began to weigh the practical consequences. My eldest sister-in-law pressed on. Third, Cui Yao has been married into the Lin family for 5 years and has dealt with all of you for years. Do you not know what kind of person she is? No one replied. My eldest sister-in-law smiled and pushed Lin Wan's inkstone forward again. Let me speak fairly for Xingji. If he were still alive, he would likely say that this wife is 10,000 times better than that cousin of his. The hall fell silent again. The old granduncle looked at the records, then at me standing behind my eldest sister-in-law. I had not said a word from beginning to end. I only lowered my eyes and held Lin's hand. Then he looked at the blank place for a wife beneath Lin Wan's name in the genealogy. After a long while, he coughed lightly. It may be written in, but to the outside world we must say that she is a widow who voluntarily observes chastity. We cannot let people say that our Lin family has married a living person to a dead one. 6th granduncle hurriedly agreed. Yes. Outside we will say that Cui Yao was moved by Xingji's early death and voluntarily chose to remain chaste, raising his adopted son. The clan was grateful for her virtue and therefore entered her name. That preserves her reputation and, he did not say the rest aloud, but I supplied it in my heart. It preserved the fields and shops of Xingji's branch from falling into outsiders' hands, and spared the clan from finding someone else to manage the accounts. It made things look good both inside and out. My eldest sister-in-law immediately said, Granduncle is entirely right. This is an excellent idea. Let us do exactly as you say. The elders in the hall looked at one another. They exchanged calculating looks. Finally, they nodded together. Cui Yao of the Cui family, with the personal name Xue, chaste and virtuous, has merit in raising the adopted son. She shall be entered under Lin Wan of the main branch as his widow. My eldest sister-in-law turned and winked at me as if to say, "See, is my tongue not quicker than your pen?" Holding Linlin's hand, I quietly curved my lips. The materials I had painstakingly gathered over more than 3 years had been turned by my eldest sister-in-law into a safer harbor for my son and me. On the day of the adoption banquet, the Lin Ancestral Hall opened its doors wide. 2 rows of red candles burned from the gate straight to the altar. The flames did not flicker at all, making the hall more solemn. The clan elders took their seats according to rank. The oldest elder trembled as he opened the genealogy to the page of the second branch. Lin Zheng stood before the incense altar and personally struck Lin Han's name from the small line beneath Lin Feng's name. Then he turned to the main branch and added new ink beneath Lin Wan's name. The 12th generation of the Lin family, named Lin, shall inherit the incense and line of the main branch of Lin Wan, entered in the middle of autumn. 3rd year of Tianyu. His voice was not loud, yet it rang through the ancestral hall. Lin Han wore a newly tailored indigo brocade robe. His small body knelt on a cushion and bowed 3 times before Lin Wan's memorial tablet. My eldest sister-in-law, her eyes red, bent to help him up and stroked his forehead. "Good child. From now on you are Xingji's son." Lin Zheng took a jade pendant from his robe and hung it around Lin Lin's neck. Lin Yan gave him an inkstone. Each uncle took one of his hands. Lin Zheng patted his shoulder lightly. "From now on, follow your eldest uncle. You will learn to ride and read. You will lack nothing." Lin gripped the jade pendant timidly and looked back at me. Only after I nodded did he press his lips together and stand straight. Then it was time to enter my name. The clan elder dipped his brush in fresh ink and set it down beside Lin Wan's name in the place for a wife. The brush moved, writing, "Cui Yao of the Cui family." The dark ink sank into the yellowed page and lay alongside the names of my eldest and second sisters-in-law, neatly arranged in the main branch S-line. From that moment on, the genealogy no longer held Cui Yao, the wife of Lin Feng and eldest legitimate daughter of the Cui clan of Lin Zhang. It held only Cui Yao, the wife of Lin Wan and eldest legitimate daughter of the Cui clan of Lin Zhang. My eldest sister-in-law personally pinned a pure white silk flower into my hair at the temple. She stepped back, looked at me for a while, and said softly, "From now on, you will live in the Western residence. I will have another moon gate opened so that we can visit each other easily." I touched the silk flower and smiled at her. At that very moment, Lin Feng finally reacted. "Cui Yao." He called me by my full name, his voice breaking. He rushed several steps to the table, pointed at the genealogy, and trembled even at the knuckles. "What do you mean? I accept Linlin's adoption. But why is your name beside Lin Wan's?" My eldest sister-in-law's delicate brows rose. "Lin Feng, this is the ancestral hall. What kind of conduct is this? Shouting and making a scene." Lin Zheng stood. His office was higher than Lin Feng's, and he was the eldest son of the main branch, the highest-ranking official in the Lin family. His bearing immediately suppressed Lin Feng, who was only a 6th-rank official. Lin Feng's fury caught in his throat. Lin Zheng turned the genealogy toward him and pointed to the words beneath Lin Wan's name. "Look clearly. Cui Yao of the Cui family has been properly entered into the genealogy by the clan elders themselves. Are you here today to question whether the elders are fit to write those words? Lin Wan is dead and you have her marry a dead man." "Xingji is indeed dead," Lin Yan said, rising with a voice cold as ice. "But his line needs someone to continue it. You adopted your son here, yet you do not leave the child's mother to teach him. Do you intend for the child to change households and be left with no one to care for him?" Lin Feng's face reddened. "But she cannot. What right do you have to control her?" My eldest sister-in-law suddenly raised her voice and struck the table with her palm. "Lin Feng, how many times have you held your own son? Do you not know? You emptied your private storeroom to fill the pit of that guest courtyard. Did you think the entire clan was blind? For an outside woman, you no longer wanted either wife or child. You personally wrote the divorce agreement and severance letter. Cui Yao wishes to observe chastity for Xingji. What does that have to do with you?" My eldest sister-in-law scolding drove Lin Feng back one step. At last he looked at me. I stood where I was and only smiled at him, neither warmly nor coldly. "The last time we met, were you not in a hurry to sign the divorce agreement? What is this? The words are signed, the seals are pressed, yet now you refuse to acknowledge them? He pointed at the tip of my nose, his voice shaking. "You plotted against me. From the beginning to end, you plotted against me." "How did I plot against you?" From the moment I left the Zhou residence, I had taken my son out of the Lin household and moved into the guest courtyard of the main branch. But Lin Feng did not enjoy sweet marital days with Cui Jin. The main reason was that he had emptied his estate to rescue the woman he loved from suffering. At the time I had demanded 5,000 taels before I would go to the Zhou family to bring Cui Jin out. He could not gather enough cash, so he mortgaged the property left by his parents. After I moved out, the Lin household had only an empty shell left. There was little property remaining, no silver in the accounts, and not even enough money for servants to make household purchases. A poor couple has 100 sorrows. Neither of them had ever known hardship. Their tender affection was soon ground away by firewood, rice, oil, and salt. Their passionate devotion was distorted by the strange looks of neighbors. Then the main branch notified him that it would hold the adoption ceremony for Lin Wan. Although Lin Feng had written the severance letter for Lin Han, he was still a member of the Lin family and naturally had to attend. There, he's discovered that I, his former wife, had divorced him one moment and become Lin Wan's widow the next. He felt utterly deceived and trapped. He immediately pointed at my nose and cursed. I walked slowly toward him. Lin Feng, 5 years ago, when you married me, your eyes and heart were full of my sister. You believed I had stolen her destined marriage. Every month you gave her silver and things. Every day, you held her son. When your own child called you father, you acted as if you did not hear. You signed the divorce agreement with your own hand, and the fingerprint on the severance letter is still fresh. If you feel I plotted against you, I paused deliberately and looked at the veins bulging on his face. Then tell me which of those things I forced you to do. Lin Feng opened his mouth, but not a word came out. Lin Zheng stepped forward and shoved him once, making his whole body stagger. His voice was mild. Today is a joyous day for the main branch. If you make trouble again, do not blame me for forgetting brotherhood. Lin Feng breathed hard. His eyes moved back and forth between me and the genealogy several times. His throat worked again and again. At last, he had no choice but to swallow all his resentment. Through the entire ceremony, he wore a stiff face and watched helplessly as I led Lin Han in new clothes, his arms full of gifts from the various branches. Lin was young and did not understand adoption. He only knew that from now on he had to call the man whose name was carved on the memorial tablet father, and that the new father he had longed for was buried underground and could never appear in this lifetime. He suddenly burst into tears. My new father cannot toss me into the air or take me riding. Mother, didn't you say the new father you found would take me riding? Those who did not know the truth laughed at the child's innocence. Those who knew could not help sighing, and each cast an angry sideways glance at Lin Feng. A father who had time to hold another man's son but could not love his own sons. It was no wonder Cui Yao had divorced him and would rather remain Xingji's widow for life than have ties with him. Lin Zheng picked Linlin up and coaxed him gently. Be good, Linlin. Your new father cannot hold you, but your eldest uncle can. Your eldest uncle will toss you high. As he spoke, he lifted Linlin over his head. Lin Yan came to hold Linlin too, lifting him high. Their cousins took turns placing him on their shoulders. Only then did Linlin smile. He clapped and shouted, higher, higher. Then he smiled at me. Mother, this new father is so good. I want this new father. Everyone laughed, then felt a sudden ache in their hearts. As for Lin Feng, Linlin's biological father, he stood there completely wilted and dejected. He watched helplessly as the son he had never once looked at properly was cherished like a treasure by the main branch's uncles and cousins. Halfway through the banquet, an imperial edict arrived. The emperor bestowed on Lin Han a complete set of the 4 treasures of the study and an estate of 3,000 mu. He also bestowed on me the title of 4th rank, titled Lady. The Lin clan erupted at once. My eldest sister, my hand. You have received a titled rank. We must enter the palace to give thanks. Tomorrow, I will go with you. In truth, I had no desire to enter the palace. All that kneeling and rising was terribly restricting. But under imperial rule, I could only endure it. Thank you, eldest sister-in-law. The banquet grew lively again. Relatives from the other branches came one after another to toast me. My eldest sister's smile almost reached her ears. The main branch had gained a daughter-in-law with an imperial title, bringing the main branch both prestige and practical gain. Lin Zheng and Lin Yan looked at each other, unable to hide their delight. After the banquet, the clan members gradually departed. Lin Feng, still unwilling to accept it, blocked my path again. Cui Yao, did you calculate everything long ago? I answered with a question. What do you think? His face was twisted, and he breathed like a bellows. Cui Yao, you truly are deeply calculating. 5 years ago you plotted against me, and then, I cut him off. Back then, if there had been anyone else to choose, do you think I would have chosen you? What did you say? He clearly had not expected my counterattack. His eyes widened. I laughed coldly. Let me tell you the truth. My stepmother considered the two of you too. Unfortunately, my sister did not like you. She thought your looks were too ordinary and chose Joe Ray at first sight. You are lying, believe it or not. I did not tell you the truth only to preserve the little self-respect you had. I smiled faintly, not bothering to hide my mockery. You think far too highly of yourself. Even now you still believe you are wonderful, pitiful and pathetic. Do you think I chose you because I liked you? I chose you because of the family behind you. Your cousins who held high office and the wives of those cousins, who were easy to get along with. Otherwise, would I have looked at you? You cannot shoulder responsibility or accomplish anything, yet you always think you are right. You judge people by appearances rather than right and wrong. You are a complete idiot. I humiliated him without mercy. He shook with rage and pointed at me, even his fingertip trembling. Cui Yao, how dare you speak of your husband like that? We are divorced. I am now the widow of your cousin. That one address, cousin-in-law line was like a slap across his face. He suddenly stepped back, his eyes wide. A flood of words caught in his throat, yet he could not say a single one. In 8 years as a mediator in my previous life, I had never feared being pointed at and accused of being calculating. In a mediation room, when a losing man grew furious and slammed the table saying, "You plotted against me," I usually answered only, "Did I force you to do those things?" Then I laid out the cash flow records and timeline. At once, the anger died, because the facts were right there. I merely gathered them completely and spread them out at the proper time. Lin Feng, examine your conscience. I stepped toward him, and he actually stepped back. Every month, when you sent silver to the guest courtyard, did I tell you to send it? When you held another man's son and did not hold your own, did I teach you to do that? When you signed the divorce agreement and severance letter, did I force your hand onto the page? Not one thing. I stopped a step away from him and looked at him. You did all of it yourself. I merely kept the accounts for you. For 3 years I had recorded him. Sunlight fell across his face. His ordinary features were distorted into something frightening. His throat moved several times before he finally forced out, "From beginning to end, you have been plotting against me." "Then tell me," I smiled. "What did I plot against you?" He could not answer. From afar my eldest sister-in-law called, "Come over and call me third sister-in-law." I turned to answer her. When I turned back, Lin Feng said hoarsely, "Do not be too pleased with yourself." "I am pleased with myself. I must be pleased with myself." I stared at him and released, bit by bit, all that I had endured for 4 years. "Have you forgotten the words you said to me right after I gave birth?" His eyes went blank, and he said nothing. 4 years ago, I had just given birth and my body was weak. He entered and stood 3 paces from the bed with his hands behind his back, his expression indifferent. "The child has been born. Your duty and mine are fulfilled. From this day forward I will not step into your room again. Do not blame me for being heartless. If you had not chosen me first, would Cui Jin have had to step back and choose Zhou Rei? If I had not adjusted myself in time, if I had truly been only a girl not yet 20, if I had been proud by nature, if I had not possessed the experience of a district court mediator, I might have broken under resentment, humiliation, and grievance. The consequences could have been irreversible. That would have suited him perfectly, would it not?" I repeated to him, word for word, what he had said in the birthing room that year. Lin Feng plainly remembered. His face immediately turned white. I pressed him, enunciating every word. "That is why, from that day on, I no longer regarded you as my husband. I was always planning another way out for my son and me. At first, I had thought of killing him, poisoning him, even hiring someone to kill him, but such things were far easier to imagine than to carry out. Half a year later, I had no choice but to abandon those ideas. I began collecting proof of Lin Feng's coldness toward my son and me, preparing for a future divorce. Thus, I endured his indifference, humiliation, and suppression. I endured his failure to show even the smallest concern for our child. I endured him bringing Cui Jin and her son into the residence, reserving the best things for Cui Jin, and loving her son like his own. I only kept records. Heaven favored me. Half a year earlier, Lin Wan had died saving the emperor. The clan wanted to choose a child to adopt to him, and I was immediately seized by a fierce desire. I knew this would not be easy, but people can accomplish what they set out to do. Fortunately, my past as a mediator had taught me to preserve complete evidence. The evidence I had kept of Lin Feng's heartlessness and betrayal gave me the means to strike a decisive blow. Thinking of my calculations over those days, I could not help admiring myself. This was the most beautiful counterattack of someone harmed in a marriage. It was a pity I could find no one to show it to. Fortunately, this man had insisted on presenting himself before me. So I told him, I should thank you for bringing Cui Jin-sin and her son into the residence. It let me collect evidence very smoothly. Lin Feng's eyes widened. He was so furious he nearly could not stand. That is right. I was also the one who summoned old Madame Zhou. I arranged the things she said, and the timing of her arrival at our door. You vicious woman. Compared with your foolish acts, what is this of mine? At most, it is self-protection. Lin Feng, you believe the sacrifices you made for Tsuin are proof of a love worthy of praise, but you used the name of true love to take advantage of me, making my son and me suffer for it. Can that be called true love? You shameless man, what right do you have to call me vicious? You forced all of this. Get out. Do not appear before me again. I will live better and better, while you will only live more and more miserably. If you are not afraid of being laughed at, come find me whenever you please. Lin Feng was so angry he could not speak. He only panted, turned, and disappeared at the end of the corridor, walking unsteadily. Cui Jin's mouth was never idle. After she moved into the Lin family, she spread many rumors outside. She said I was scheming and had tricked Lin Feng into signing the divorce agreement. She said I had cleared out more than half the storerooms, while people were off guard, and even plotted to put his legitimate son under the main branch name. She also said Lin Feng was truly devoted, that I had played him in the palm of my hand for 5 years. When these words reached me, I was drinking tea in my eldest sister-in-law's courtyard. After hearing them, she set down her teacup and gave a cold laugh. She knows how to strike first. I smiled and did not respond. After 8 years as a mediator, I knew too well that the person who cried injustice first was not necessarily right. Everything depended on evidence. However eloquently Cui Jin twisted words, she could not overturn black ink on white paper. The ancients might have been feudal, but they regarded descendants as weightier than heaven. A biological father who held another man's son thousands of times, but never once held his own legitimate son, could not explain that anywhere. As for my remarriage to Lin Wan, however unusual it was nothing beside Lin Feng's lack of virtue. As expected, my eldest and second sisters-in-law did not disappoint me. Every few days, during banquets at various residences, they casually mentioned those records in exceptionally skillful wording. Our younger sister-in-law is truly meticulous. She recorded every time Lin Feng held Cui Jin's son over the past 2 years, saying she wanted to leave memories for the child to see when he grew up. I flipped through it, and goodness. 365 days a year, 730 days in all. He held the boy more than 2,000 times. And how many times did he hold his own Lin? Guess. Not once. The foolish Lin Feng had given more than 800 items to Zhou Rei's son in 2 years, and more than 1,000 to Cui Jin. Wooden carts, little clothes, shoes and socks, rubies, pearls. My eldest sister-in-law directly showed the records to several close officials' wives. After passing them around, the ladies all drew sharp breaths. In less than half a month, the entire circle of official families was shaken. Throughout the capital, people mocked Lin Feng as a complete idiot through and through. The words I had said to him in the main branch were never intentionally hidden, and the insult, complete idiot, spread throughout the capital. According to the news my eldest sister-in-law heard, one censor at the censorate used exceptionally sharp words. Lin Feng cherished another man's wife and child while treating his own wife and child harshly, overturning proper order and showing deficient virtue. He was unfit for office. Street rumors supported the accusation. In tea houses and taverns, storytellers had already turned the matter into a performance titled, The Tale of Lin Feng Holding Another Man's Child. When my eldest sister-in-law told me this, she could not suppress her smile. Third sister-in-law, your records truly kill without spilling blood. I pushed a fresh cup of tea toward her and smiled with calm composure. At the beginning of winter, Lin Feng was suspended from office and ordered to stay home and reflect. Cui Yun told me Cui Jin had been in a terrible temper lately, often smashing things in the house. Lin Feng's salary had been meager to begin with, and I had removed more than half the storerooms. Now he had lost his post and become the laughingstock of others. He did not even dare step outside. Cui Jin had come seeking the status and prestige of being Madame Lin. She had never expected that she could not even have a respectable winter outfit made. The Zhou family had used up nearly all of her dowry, and Lin Feng, whom she had treated as her lifeline, was almost an empty shell. She began to blame Lin Feng, saying he really was a complete idiot to let his former wife, me, strip his estate bare, leaving her to endure hardship after marrying him. Lin Feng blamed her in return. If it were not for you. Before he could finish, Cui-jin cut him off. Did I force you to pay anything? Then the two exposed one another's faults. Once their words no longer had restraint, Lin Feng regretted everything. He regretted emptying his estate and treating Cui-jin and her son with all his heart. He regretted divorcing me and allowing a cursed woman like her through his door. He even called Cui-jin a bringer of misfortune. Cui-jin called him a complete idiot. In anger, she returned to her maternal home. But my father, who was my father in name only, valued reputation more than anyone. His eldest daughter, by his first wife, Mi, had quietly divorced and been entered as the widow of a dead man, which was already shocking enough. His younger daughter, whom he had cherished in his palm, now carried an even worse reputation, too shameful to describe openly. Despite his second wife's desperate pleading, he drove Cui-jin out and declared that the Cui family had no daughter who brought shame upon its household. Unable to return to her maternal home and hated to the bone by her former husband's family, Cui-jin had no choice but to return in disgrace to the Lin residence in Yulin Alley. To her surprise, she could not even enter the Lin gate. She went mad with rage and shouted at Lin Feng in the middle of the alley. In the end, my eldest sister-in-law personally came out, ordered Cui-jin's mouth covered, and had her forcibly returned to her maternal home. Lin Zheng believed the situation could not continue. No matter how bad Lin Feng was, he was still a Lin. After much effort, Lin Zheng found him an external posting. It was only a small clerk's position in a lower prefecture, but it was a proper post and kept him far from the capital's center of scandal. Before Lin Feng departed for his new post, he stood outside the main branch gate and wanted to see me once. I refused. He took a step back and asked to see his son once. I refused that too. Now that Lin Han was in the main branch, he was like a fish in water. His eldest and second uncles loved him as if he were their own son because he lacked a father. Every day, they called him over to ask about his studies and eat with him. His cousins loved him too. They often brought delicious food and interesting toys, and sometimes took him riding. After only 1 month, Lin Han smiled much more often and his temperament became far more open. A child's environment truly mattered. He had elders who loved him and cousins who treated him like their own brother. He did not need Lin Feng's late paternal affection. Compared with Lin Feng, whose clan still supported him despite his betrayal, Cui-jin's ending was even more miserable. My eldest sister-in-law had barely sent her back to the Cui family when she was driven out again. For a long time afterward, no news of her came. Some said they had seen her in the entertainment quarter, others said she had been sold to a brothel in the south. Every kind of rumor spread, and later no one mentioned her again. No one forced her when she chose Zhou Rui for his looks. No one forced her when she accepted the ruby jewelry, exquisite luxurious clothing, bracelets, and silver that exceeded the proper bounds between a brother-in-law and a younger half-sister-in-law. She had walked every step of that road herself. Lin Han grew quickly. By the time he was 7, he could ride a small horse behind Lin Zheng all the way along a street. He had taken over Lin Wan's former study, and he had read more than half the books on its shelves. He could recite the 4 books and 5 classics more fluently than Lin Zheng's youngest son. My eldest sister-in-law often teased, "This child no longer resembles the timid little thing who hid behind others when he first came. It is as though he has changed souls." In my heart, I knew his soul had not changed. Someone had simply been willing to hold him and take him riding. After Lin Han was adopted into the main branch, I taught him not only to read and write, but also to keep records. You must remember that what people say is not important. Look at what they do. People can dress up their words however they please. But what is written in the account books cannot lie. On the day Lin Qing stormed into the main branch, I was helping my eldest and second sisters-in-law compare accounts with the clan elders. Lin Qing dragged his wife, Madame Huang, by the hand, his voice loud enough to be heard through 2 courtyard walls. In 3 years, she has not saved even 10 taels. She must have secretly taken silver to subsidize her maternal family. He stepped over the threshold and told everyone in the hall, "It is fortunate that the clan elders are here. Please judge this for me. I do not want this woman anymore." Madame Huang followed behind him with red-rimmed eyes, twisting her sleeve. She could only choke out, "I did not. The child is growing and costs money. My mother-in-law takes medicine all year. I cannot even bear to have a new set of clothes cut." Lin Qing flicked his sleeve. 5 taels a month, 4 people eating. In a year, you should save at least 30 taels. Do you take me for a fool? The elders questioned and persuaded them, but Lin Qing's thinking led them along. Together, they asked Madame Huang, "Did you really take the money to support your maternal family?" "Wronged. Madame Huang cried without stopping and nearly made a desperate attempt to prove her innocence. My eldest sister-in-law rubbed her temple and threw the tangled matter to me. Younger sister-in-law helped them judge it. I took them to the side room, let each tell their side, and filled 2 pages of paper. At last I asked Lin Qing, "You say she is greedy, lazy, and fond of food. Did you see this with your own eyes?" Lin Qing choked. "Not exactly, but the money is gone." I then asked Madame Huang, "You say the child costs money. What precisely is the money spent on?" Madame Huang could only say that she bought paper and brushes, made extra clothes, and hired a doctor. She could not give detailed items. I took out a stack of white hemp paper, cut it into small account books, and gave one to Madame Huang. From tomorrow onward, every expense must be written down. How many coins for vegetables, how many for medicine, how many for paper and brushes, write every item. Keep records for 1 month, then bring them to me. Lin Qing snorted. What good will records do? If the book shows enough money to cover the expenses and she is truly greedy, I will write the divorce letter for you myself. But if the silver has clearly and openly been spent, what will you do? Lin Qing froze and muttered, What if she makes it up? That is simple. For every expense, have a witness add a fingerprint. Then it cannot be falsified. 1 month later, Madame Huang brought in the ledger, filled from beginning to end. 5 taels divided by each day came to 160 coins. Rice cost 8 coins, vegetables 15, oil, salt, soy sauce, and vinegar, month, school fees 300, paper and brushes 80, and her mother-in-law's medicine 400, plus lamp oil, charcoal, sewing supplies, and other necessities. On the abacus, every amount was clear and orderly. I pushed the ledger in front of Lin Qing. Is it enough? Calculate it yourself. He ran the numbers on the abacus 3 times, sweat forming on his forehead. Then he looked up at Madame Huang's sleeves, worn through from use. His throat moved several times before he finally lowered his head in shame. I told him, You think you married a greedy wife. In truth, you simply do not know what 5 taels means in the capital, when it must feed a family of 5 and an elder who takes medicine all year. Then I scolded Madame Huang too. Men always like to forget whatever they choose to forget. To silence him, keep the books from now on. Let facts speak. Understand? Lin Qing and Madame Huang repeatedly agreed, so grateful that they wept. After this story spread, disputes from other branches of the Lin family came one after another. Some sought a ruling over conflicts between mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law. Some wanted to know which of 2 brothers should support their father. Others argued over the ownership of dowries. I followed the same rules every time. Examine the original accounts, question servants, compare neighbors' statements, cross-check, then write a document that listed the facts and principles clearly. Both sides signed and pressed their fingerprints, and neither was allowed to reopen the matter afterward. Half a year passed. The Lin clan's endless domestic chaos decreased by more than half. My eldest sister-in-law told everyone, My sister-in-law's pen is worth more than 10 clan elders. Later, even people outside the family came to me. The first was the Zhao family from the neighboring alley. Madame Zhang complained that her husband favored the widow next door while never asking after her or their child. The man refused to admit favoritism. He only admitted the neighboring widow was pitiable and said he had merely lent her a hand. When the dispute reached me, I had handled this kind of favoritism dispute many times. As usual, I first separated the 2 parties and let them speak. I filled 10 pages with everything each side complained about, then questioned servants from both households. Afterward, I spread the collected material across the table. The man looked at the 10 long pages recording everything he had done for the neighboring widow. Then he looked at the section with not a single line for his own wife and child. His face changed from red to white. After choking for a long time, he could not produce 1 word of rebuttal. Madame Zhang left after thanking me 1,000 times. Later came a household matter, involving an officer of the 5 cities military command, then a property dispute over 2 silk shops. My reputation spread farther and farther. In less than 3 years, whenever anyone in the capital faced a tangled unclear dispute, someone would say, Go to Xinglin Alley and find the 3rd Madame Lin, the widow of the main branch. She judges matters more clearly than the magistrate. Later, a commandery prince of the imperial clan brought a case to the imperial clan court, saying he wanted to divorce his 2nd wife. He claimed that within less than a year of entering the household, she had embezzled his silver and caused the princely estate to spend more than it earned. He insisted she must be secretly taking money. The princess consort wept and said she had never embezzled anything. The estate's expenses were simply too large, and no one knew how to be thrifty. At times she had even used her own dowry to cover the shortfall and preserve the household's dignity. But the prince believed that a family with such a great estate could never lack silver, so she must be stealing it. The emperor was so annoyed by the matter that someone below reminded him, "The younger sister-in-law of Minister Lin is skilled at judging domestic disputes." The emperor sent someone to summon me into the palace. Before the throne, I stacked the estate's original account books, the servants' statements, and testimony from other members of the princely household into a thick pile. For a full hour, I analyzed every item and every entry. Only then did the prince understand that his family fortune was not as substantial as he had imagined, and that the entire household spent silver much faster than the estate earned it. After the princess consort's innocence was proven, she instead demanded a divorce. In the end, the prince had to lower himself and coax her before bringing her back. The emperor sat above and looked at me for a long time. Then he asked, "Cui Yao, who taught you this skill?" I thought for a moment before replying, "Your Majesty, this humble woman was born fond of keeping accounts. Once the accounts are clear, the heart becomes clear as well." The emperor laughed. Half a month later, an edict arrived at the Lin family. Shuntian Prefecture had added a female mediator post, responsible for handling domestic disputes among the capital households. I was granted an official robe and a monthly salary corresponding to an upper 7th rank post. The edict stated clearly, "Cui Yao of the Lin family is clear-minded, skilled at judgment, fair and thorough. She shall report for duty immediately." That night after receiving the edict, I hung the official robe up and looked at it for a long time. Cui Yun stood beside me with red-rimmed eyes. "Madam, you have brought honor to the ancestors." I reached out and touched the fabric of the robe. A smile kept spreading across my face. In my previous life, when I worked as a mediator in the district court, I wore a dark blue uniform with a badge on my chest. After doing it for so long, I had become bored enough to want to resign. But after being transported to this ancient era and living here for a full 10 years, I realized that having a profession as a woman was far easier than being a woman trapped in the inner household. Organizing accounts, taking statements, comparing evidence, and drafting documents were cumbersome and dull. Yet at least they brought joy and a sense of accomplishment. They came with a salary and a position to match. The work of a woman managing an inner household, by contrast, was true hard labor. It never ended, could never be paused, and paid nothing. Outside the window, the moon was beautiful. I sat before the lamp, sorting the records I had kept over the years. The things sent from my maternal family were becoming more valuable. The gifts for Lin Han and for me were all practical and considerate. In the second year after Lin Feng left the capital, he nearly died from a severe cold. His only attendant had no choice but to write to the main branch for help. After reading the letter, my eldest sister-in-law merely sent a steward with 200 taels of silver to assist him. Then she said to me, "After all, we share the surname Lin. Family must look after its own." I sent someone only to fulfill the main branch duty to help a clan member. If he dies, we will have to send someone thousands of miles away to collect his body, and that will cost even more. I smiled and said nothing more. Lin Han would grow up safely and earn distinction through these examinations. Lin Zheng and Lin Yan would support him all the way. As for me, I had an office at Shuntian Prefecture and that official robe. Whether Lin Feng lived or died, truly no longer mattered to me. I had already turned that page of debt long ago. The page I held in my hand now was an entirely different one. Thank you for supporting and following Panda. Now, let's continue with the second story. We hope you enjoy a relaxing and pleasant time with us. Hearing the name Assassin Pavilion, anyone would imagine a shadowy organization that controlled the court from behind the scenes. Assassins coming and going, blades flashing, murderous intent everywhere. The truth, however, was a crumbling abandoned temple perched on the peak of Mount Wuming. Wind howled through it all year because a storm had carried off the roof tiles generations ago. My name is Chen Qinglan. I had just turned 18, the brightest begonia on Mount Wuming and the Assassin Pavilion's only direct disciple. That day was momentous. I was officially descending the mountain and entering the treacherous martial world. My master, Situ Wan Luo, stood at the temple gate in a faded gray Taoist robe. I could swear I saw him quietly daubing saliva at the corners of his eyes so he could look properly heartbroken. My good disciple. He clasped my hands, his voice so mournful and dramatic that I nearly believed him. You are the pride of the Assassin Pavilion, an elite among elites, the greatest assassin in the martial world. This mission is perilous beyond measure. Our target is the current Dog Emperor. Remember, you are the blood tiger, the most ruthless, bloodthirsty tiger under heaven. I blinked my large eyes, slapped my chest, and nodded with absolute determination. Do not worry, master, I will bring back the dog emperor's head and make it into a chair for you. To be honest, I had immense faith in myself. I had studied under master for 10 years. He often said my martial arts were like a cat's jing, and my lightness technique looked like a hen, flapping its wings before dropping to the ground and bruising its backside. But he had also taught me that an assassin's most important weapon was presence. As long as I radiated killing intent, my enemies would fall dead on their own. Such profound reasoning naturally convinced me completely. Master nodded in satisfaction, reached into the wrinkled cloth bag at his waist, and took out a round, dark brown pill. He pressed it into my hand. This is our sect's secret life-taking pill. Hide it in the gap beside your left back molar. If your assassination fails and you fall into enemy hands, never let them humiliate you. Bite through this pill and you will ascend peacefully, preserving the integrity of a first-rate assassin. Do you understand? Moved to tears, I carefully tucked the pill against my teeth. It tasted a little tart, with the faint fragrance of rock sugar. Naturally, a high-grade poison from the assassin pavilion would be deceptive even in flavor. Holding it in my mouth felt exactly like cheap preserved hawthorn candy, sold for 2 coins a pound at the foot of the mountain. This disciple understands. An assassin would rather die with honor than live in disgrace. I shouted the slogan brightly, clasped my hands behind my back, and strode down the mountain as though I could already see the name Blood Tiger Chen Qinglan recorded in the history books. I did not hear Master muttering behind me, "Little Qinglan, it is not that I am cruel enough to send you to your death. The mountain has simply run out of rice. Go down and fend for yourself. If you get thrown into prison, at least the palace will feed you 3 meals a day, and that life-taking pill is really preserved hawthorn candy. I hope you do not mind the gift." Half a month later, the palace of Great Yuan blazed with lights. A lavish banquet for foreign envoys was being held in the Hall of Supreme Harmony. My target, 15-year-old Emperor Lin Wuyu, sat on the dragon throne looking entirely too young. Ministers raised their cups in praise, but I noticed their furtive glances kept drifting toward the highest table to His Majesty's right. There sat Regent Prince Lin Lengjing with his eyes closed as if resting. The moment I saw him, my young maiden's heart nearly skipped a beat. He wore a black brocade robe embroidered with silver eagles. His nose was high and straight, his thin lips looked merciless, and the sharp lines of his face seemed carved from ancient ice. He was a living king of hell, yet his profile was almost divine. He was so handsome that I nearly threw away my assassination needle, but I immediately pinched my thigh hard. "Chen Qinglan, calm down. You are the greatest assassin. You are a killing machine without feelings. Handsome men are only passing clouds." Lin Lengjing's presence was so cold that even the consorts seated some 30 meters away discreetly pulled their collars higher. Rumor had it that he had a severe aversion to dirt and a long-standing lack of appetite. A table of exquisite dishes sat before him, fragrant enough to make one's mouth water, yet he did not touch a single chopstick. I was hidden among the dancers, swallowing again and again as my stomach rumbled. If he was not going to eat, he should let me. Wasting food was a crime against heaven and earth. "Your Majesty, next is the startling swan dance specially prepared by the Imperial Music Bureau." The elderly eunuch's clear call cut off my hungry thoughts. The moment had come. Bamboo music rose, and a length of red silk floated in from outside the hall. 12 beautiful dancers, lithe as water snakes, glided inside in thin silk sleeves, and I, the great blood tiger assassin, stood proudly in the center of the 3rd row. I had spent 3 days auditioning and disguising my identity before successfully infiltrating the troupe. My blood was racing with professional excitement. The music shifted into a quick, urgent rhythm. The dancers around me bent their waists, arched their bodies, and moved with graceful steps. I looked down on them inwardly. What fragile little chicks they were, dancing as softly as limp noodles. I remembered Master's teaching. An assassin's back must be straight, their arms extended, their gaze sharp enough to cut through the night, and their every step powerful enough to make all things submit. Very well. Today, Chen Qinglan would show them what a dance of death looked like. Amid the graceful dancers, I abruptly thrust out my chest, pulled in my stomach, and stood as rigid as a temple pillar. I flung out my arms like the blades of a windmill, rose onto my toes and marched forward 1-2, with the force of soldiers on parade. To create a blade-like gaze, I opened my eyes wide without blinking and stared directly at the dragon throne until the wind made them sting and tear. Then I performed a Tai Chi routine mixed with rhythmic exercises and shuffled straight toward the dog emperor. "See? I silently shouted to myself. My presence had overwhelmed the entire hall. The officials were frozen with their mouths open, staring at me. Even the dog emperor had dropped a grape from his mouth. Clearly, he had been bewitched by my beauty and magnificence. As he summoned me closer, I would pull the needle from my hair and send him straight to the next life with one strike. The more pleased I became, the more forcefully I stomped across the stone floor. But reality was far crueler than I imagined. The entire hall had fallen into horrified silence. Even the bamboo music stumbled because of my soul-shaking dance, let out a sharp, discordant sound, and died away. Emperor Lin Wu Yu was about to put a grape into his mouth when he saw me, a woman in red silk, eyes bulging, moving awkwardly as though a possessed corpse were charging at him. The grape caught in his throat. He coughed violently, dived under the table, pointed at me with a shaking finger and shrieked, "Guards! That dancer is possessed! She is a monster! She wants to eat me! Seize her, drag her out and execute her." A monster? Possessed? I was an immortal maiden descended to earth, a cool and ruthless assassin. Was that dog emperor blind? Before I could recover from the insult, more than a dozen armored imperial guards drew their swords and rushed into the hall. The other dancers screamed, crouched on the floor, and hugged their heads like frightened rabbits. Only I remained in my dance pose, arms spread like a soaring eagle, and one leg still raised above my knee. In an instant, my lethal assassin's aura vanished, replaced by complete confusion. What was happening? Where was my plan to blend in? Hadn't I danced so gracefully? How had I been discovered? Was my presence simply too overwhelming for ordinary eyes to appreciate such a high art? Before I could invent an explanation, two huge guards grabbed me, twisted my arms behind my back, and forced me to my knees on the icy stone. The poisoned silver needle master had told me to hide in my hair loosened and clattered to the ground, rolling all the way to the steps below the throne. "Your Majesty, this woman carries a concealed weapon. She truly is an assassin." The guard announced it with the smug expression of someone who had earned great merit. My heart pounded. My martial world career had barely begun, only to be extinguished so brutally. I squeezed my eyes shut. Master had said that dancing like this would fool spirits and gods alike, yet I had been caught the moment I raised my arms. Was the blood tiger going to die here today? As I braced myself for death, a low, icy voice came from the raised platform. It was not loud, but everyone instantly felt a chill down their backs and obediently fell silent. "Stop." I cracked one eye open. The one who had spoken was the living king of hell, Regent Prince Lin Lengjing. He had opened his eyes at some point and was staring at me with a sharp, unfathomable gaze. He slowly rotated a wine cup in one hand, the corner of his mouth lifting almost imperceptibly. He looked at me as though I were a circus monkey performing tricks. "Royal uncle." The young emperor trembled from beneath the table. "This assassin is terrifying." Her eyes were bulging as though she wanted to swallow me alive. "Have her executed at once. I will have nightmares tonight." I was furious. Execute me if he wished, but what was the point of insulting my looks? I had widened my eyes to radiate killing intent. Did that little brat not understand killing intent? Lin Lengjing set down his jade cup with a soft click and narrowed his eyes at me. I thought I saw a flicker of amusement in them. "Your Majesty, do not be alarmed," he said lightly, though no one dared disobey him. "This assassin's movements are strange, and her dance is unprecedented and entirely unique. There must be a powerful mastermind behind her. Killing her immediately would be too easy and would cut off the trail. Give her to me. I will take her back to my residence and question her personally. I will certainly uncover whoever is behind her." The emperor was delighted to hand off this burning problem. He crawled out from under the table and nodded furiously. "Yes, yes. Give her to royal uncle. Take her back and interrogate her without mercy." The guards hauled me to my feet. My mind buzzed. He was taking me back to interrogate me personally? Rumor said people entered the regent prince's dungeon easily but never came back intact. I was terrified, my legs weak, yet my assassin's pride rose up again. "No, Chen Qinglan, you are the blood tiger." I straightened my back, raised my head, and shot Lin Lengjing one final sharp glare as they dragged me from the hall. Just wait, Lin Lengjing. Did he think catching me would make me easy prey? I had poison hidden in my teeth. Once we reached the dungeon, if he dared touch a hair on my head, I would bite through the pill, taste that sweet and sour preserved hawthorn candy one last time, die gloriously before him, and leave him forever unable to have me. The Regent Prince's dungeon lived up to its reputation. The moment I passed the heavy iron door, bone-chilling cold swept over me. The place reeked of dampness and old blood. Whips, spiked clubs, finger clamps, and branding irons hung from the walls. The guards chained my arms to a bronze pillar. I pressed my lips together, forced down my fear, lifted my chin, and tried to look like a proud lone wolf. Soon, steady footsteps sounded in the corridor. Lin Lungjing entered, followed by the stone-faced secret guard Yan Sui, who carried a sword. The tall man in black brocade approached slowly, blocking the flickering candlelight and casting me in shadow. His overwhelming presence nearly made me forget to breathe. He drew a gleaming dagger from his sleeve and rested its cold edge against my throat. "Speak." His voice was flat and frightening, like a demon summoning a soul. "Who sent you? What was the true purpose of that absurd dance? Confess, and I will let you die with your body intact." I stared into his bottomless eyes. This was the moment to prove the integrity of the greatest assassin. I could not betray Master or disgrace the assassin pavilion. Better a glorious end than a shameful life. With a contemptuous smile, I shut my eyes, gathered what little inner strength I had, and bit down hard on the pill beside my left back molar. Crack. The life-taking pill broke apart. So this was it. Farewell, martial world. Farewell, dog emperor. Farewell, master. I waited for agony and a dramatic end. But 1 second, 2 seconds, then 10 seconds passed. There was no pain. Instead, a sweet and sour taste with the familiar fragrance of rock sugar spread across my tongue, sticky and chewy the longer I tasted it. Wait. This was not a life-taking pill at all. It was plainly cheap preserved hawthorn candy. The truth shattered every remaining defense in me. Tears burst out. I sobbed so hard that the dungeon seemed to shake. "You lying old master! Even the pill you gave me for my final escape was counterfeit. What sort of assassin am I if even my last resort has been taken from me?" Lin Lungjing went still. Yan Sui behind him also seemed frozen. The dagger remained by my throat, but the expression that rarely changed on the regent prince's face cracked. "Your Highness," Yan Sui said after clearing his throat, utterly bewildered, "I believe this woman may have a problem with her mind. Should we still use torture?" Lin Lungjing looked as though his intelligence had been gravely insulted. He withdrew the dagger, rubbed his temple in distaste and said, "Throw her into the woodshed and lock the door. Starve her for 3 days. I refuse to believe anyone can be that foolish. This must be a trick. Let her taste hunger and see whether she keeps acting." Late that night, the north wind blew through cracks in the woodshed door. I was shut among dry firewood, and my stomach rumbled non-stop. Since sneaking into the palace to dance, I had eaten only 1 piece of preserved hawthorn candy. Hunger gnawed at me so fiercely that I forgot the humiliation of my failed attempt. I pressed my ear to the wooden wall. No one stood guard outside. Lin Lungjing must have thought I was a harmless, foolish rabbit. He was wrong. Underestimating the blood tiger was a crime against heaven. I picked the woodshed lock with a hairpin. Luckily, Master had taught me that trick well. With a click, the lock opened. I took a deep breath and peered outside. The woodshed stood beside the prince's kitchen, and my nose was as keen as a hound's. At once I caught the rich scent of roast chicken drifting from the kitchen window. The chance had come. Once I ate my fill, I would use my magnificent lightness technique to fly over the wall and escape. I backed up, gathered momentum, rose on my toes, and launched Master's grand snow treading without trace technique. I rose exactly 3 inches before my foot caught on the window ledge. I pitched forward, face first, into a pile of cabbages in the kitchen. My nose throbbed, my backside hurt, and my lightness technique was clearly useless. Master had taught me nothing but fake martial arts. I struggled to my feet, rubbed my sore nose, and immediately locked my gaze on a copper platter on the kitchen table. In the center lay a glistening roast chicken, its skin taut and shining, fat dripping from it, fragrant enough to make me want to kneel. I did not hesitate for a second. I rushed over, tore off a huge drumstick and stuffed it into my mouth. Heavens, it was delicious. Tender chicken, sweet meat, and richly flavored honey. I ate like a dragon sweeping through the sea, and a tiger pouncing on prey until my cheeks were puffed out, and my face was shiny with grease. Just as I happily bit into my second chicken wing, a bright lantern beam cut into the kitchen. "Who is there?" I spun around. In the doorway stood Lin Lungjing in a thin white silk sleeping robe, his long black hair loose over his shoulders. He suffered from chronic insomnia and walked around the residence every night. That night, he had smelled roast chicken and heard rustling in the kitchen, so he came in to investigate, and there the living king of hell stood, staring at a female assassin holding 2 halves of a chicken, face smeared with grease and mouth still working away. Time stopped. Our eyes met, and my mind raced. I could not run and I could not win a fight. That left only one way. The ancient said that the shameless are invincible under heaven. I dropped half the chicken, threw myself at Lin Ling to his leg, and launched into a tragic performance. "Your Highness, spare my life. Please do not kill me. I am truly starving." I am so hungry that my vision is blurred and my stomach is roaring like thunder. Look at me. I have wasted away. My mother died early, my father rejected me, and my master deceived me. I have never eaten a proper meal. Please treat me like a little pig that wandered past and have pity on me. Let me finish that chicken wing, then you may punish me however you please. Lin Lengjing stiffened. His aversion to dirt must have been screaming at him as my greasy hands gripped his trouser leg. He meant to shake me off, but when he looked down and saw my watery round eyes and cheeks puffed out with half-chewed food, I must have looked like a mouse caught stealing. The strength left his leg. He glanced at the chicken bones on the table, then at me. His Adam's apple moved. He had lacked an appetite for so long that even the finest dishes made him nauseated. Yet watching this foolish rabbit eat as though the world would end tomorrow, he suddenly thought the roast chicken looked delicious. He let out a breath, pulled back his foot, and spoke in a disgusted tone that could not hide his concession. Get up. Wash your hands and face. From tomorrow onward you will not stay in the woodshed. My eyes lit up. Really? You are setting me free? In your dreams. He gave a cold smile. I am short one food taster. Beginning tomorrow you will taste every meal before I eat. If you die we will wrap you in a mat and carry you to the burial ground. If you live, we will discuss it later. A food taste with good food every day. I clutched my heart and nearly cried from gratitude. Was there a sweeter punishment in the world? Your Highness, you are truly my greatest benefactor. From then on I officially became his food tasting maid. At every meal, a long table with 36 dishes was laid out. I sat grandly beside Lin Lengjing, chopsticks in hand. Your Highness, this meat is a little dark. It may be poisoned. I should eat the whole plate to be certain. I picked up pieces rapidly and swept the plate into my mouth. Your Highness, this soup smells strange. The poison may work slowly. Let me drink it all for you. I gulped it down. In one meal, I ate 9/10 of what was on the table. Lin Lengjing sat with his chin in one hand and watched me in silence, my cheeks puffing and flattening, my eyes lighting up when I found a particularly good piece of meat. The atmosphere was quiet and strange. After watching me eat my fill, he unconsciously served himself a small bowl of rice, topped some greens, and slowly finished them. Yan Sui, waiting nearby, almost wept with emotion. It had been 3 years since his prince had finished a bowl of rice. There was nothing sinister about this female assassin. She was a miracle cure. After living there for 3 days, I looked in the mirror and discovered that my face had grown rounder and a hint of a double chin had appeared. Panic filled me. This was bad. Lin Lengjing was using the way wealthy people fatten pigs. He planned to fatten me up before butchering me. Chen Qinglan, you had lost to food. That night, I had to find a chance to assassinate him and restore the assassin pavilion's dignity. That evening, I slipped the silver needle I had recovered into my sleeve, carried a cup of tea, and quietly entered Lin Lengjing's study. He stood with his back to the door, holding an ancient book. His broad, straight silhouette radiated immense authority. This was an opportunity of a lifetime. No one was guarding his back. In a moment, the blood tiger would strike down Great Yuan's most powerful man. I gripped the needle and crept forward as lightly as a cat. 3 steps, 2 steps, 1 step. I raised the needle high and put all my strength into my arm. Lin Lengjing's accept death! I shouted inside. At the instant I delivered my killing blow, my toe caught on the study's overly high threshold. I lost my balance and flew forward. Thud. I landed squarely on Lin Lengjing's sturdy back. The needle drove down with me, but instead of reaching his heart or throat, its dull point, blunted from being dropped so many times, struck the stiff pressure point at his shoulder. Lin Lengjing staggered and let out a low sound. I squeezed my eyes shut, curled up, and waited for his fury. This time, not even 10 lives would be enough to save me. Yet after that sound, the tension left his body. He turned around with a surprisingly relaxed expression and rubbed the shoulder I had pricked. Not bad strength. He narrowed his eyes at me, where I was crouched on the floor with my head covered. A dangerous, mesmerizing smile touched his lips. You hid in my study and stalked me for nearly an hour, just to find a chance to press one of my pressure points? Were you trying to please me so you could eat more roast chicken? I stared upward in confusion. Acupoint pressing? Pleasing him? He stepped over me, swept his robe aside, sat down, and waved to Yan Sui outside the door. Her effort has made this prince feel very comfortable. My muscles are completely relaxed. Tonight, reward her with a plate of chicken legs, braised with red dates. Yan Sui looked at me with a complicated expression and answered respectfully, Yes, Your Highness. I sat on the floor, still clutching my assassination needle. He was praising me for being good at massage and rewarding me with chicken legs. I was the blood tiger, the greatest assassin. My killing blow had been mistaken for a street-side massage. That night, as I gnawed on fragrant chicken legs braised with red dates, tears ran down my face. I chewed the meat while howling inwardly, "Master, you liar. I am a failed assassin. I do not want to face this world anymore. Unless there will be spicy stir-fried lobster tomorrow. Then I might reconsider." On my 5th day as a food-tasting maid, I discovered a horrifying truth. I had gained weight. The waistband of my skirt had become tight, and a thin new layer of softness had appeared under my chin. I could not believe it. The cold-blooded blood tiger, who was supposed to kill without blinking, had been corrupted by the food in the regent prince's residence. Lin Lungjing was truly sinister. He did not use torture. He used delicious food to crush my will to fight. At this rate, I would become a fat little pig, and he might roast me one day. As I tore at my hair trying to devise an escape plan, the living king of hell suddenly ordered, "Prepare the carriage. I am going for a stroll in the city." I snorted inwardly. A stroll? The regent prince was busy with affairs of state. He had no time to wander the streets. He must suspect I had accomplices in the capital and was setting bait, taking me outside to see whether I sent a secret letter or signal. Fine, Lin Lungjing. He wanted a battle of wits? The blood tiger would expose his scheme. When we stepped down from the carriage on the capital's busiest street, Lin Lungjing was dressed as an elegant, wealthy young master, lightly fanning himself with a white jade paper fan. Behind him, the expressionless Yan Sui carried his sword as a guard. I wore a maid's outfit, but walked with my head held high, eyes sweeping everywhere like an eagle searching for prey. "Buy whatever you want to eat," Lin Lungjing said casually. His sharp eyes scanned the surrounding alleys as though he expected an ambush or a clandestine transaction. At once, my eyes shone. Since he had offered, I would not be polite. I would eat a hole through his purse as compensation for the emotional damage of being threatened these past days. I forgot every covert scheme and began sweeping through the market. "Yan Sui, pay for 5 candied hawthorn skewers. Young Master Yan, pay for 3 roasted meat buns. Wait, shopkeeper, wrap up 5 tongue-searing spicy lamb skewers. The man behind me with the sword will pay." I ate my way from one end of the street to the other. Candied hawthorn, grilled meat, preserved fruit. I could barely hold it all in both hands, and my mouth never stopped chewing. Xiansu followed behind. His eternally indifferent face finally changed color as he watched his money pouch deflate at lightning speed. He secretly looked at Lin Lungjing, utterly helpless. "Your Highness, did you bring this assassin out to lure the snake from its hole, or to sweep away the common people's food supply?" Lin Lungjing stood with his hands behind his back, watching me hold a candied hawthorn skewer in one hand, and bite into a grilled skewer with the other, grease all over my cheeks. He sighed softly, amusement mixed with helplessness in his deep eyes. Then he used the cuff of his exquisitely expensive silk sleeve to wipe the grease from the corner of my mouth. "Eat slowly. I have no intention of starving you." His low voice carried a tenderness dangerous enough to stop my heart. I froze. Looking at the finest silk stained with grease, then at his divine profile, my heart began pounding. This was bad. Chen Qinglan, wake up. He was using his good looks as a trap. That king of hell had endless methods, first attacking my stomach, then my eyes. I absolutely could not fall for it. That afternoon, I returned to the residence full and drowsy, and slept deeply. I did not know that a major incident was occurring elsewhere. Later, Yan Sui secretly told me how exciting the afternoon had been. While guarding the roof, he caught a fat pigeon, with a small bamboo tube tied to its leg. It was clearly a messenger pigeon from the assassin pavilion. He immediately brought it to Lin Lungjing's study. Along with the secret letter was a tightly wrapped little package. Lin Lungjing opened the letter with a faint smile. Master's ugly handwriting leapt off the page. "My good disciple Qinglan, hearing that you have infiltrated the regent prince's lair, fills me with pride. Today I have emptied my savings to send you 2 sacred treasures of our sect. First is the Mirage Veil, an invisibility armor woven from 1,000-year spider silk. Wear it and you will merge with the shadows. Ghosts and gods will struggle to detect you. Second is a bottle of 1 drunken 1,000 years. 1 drop puts a person to sleep for 3 days. 10 drops bring a painless death. Tonight, wear the armor, drug the king of hell, and bring back his head. Your master places all his faith in you." After secretly reading the letter, Yan Sui broke into a cold sweat and meant to draw his sword to arrest me. But Lin Lungjing laughed, low and cold, with unmistakable interest. He glanced at the parcel containing the so-called armor and medicine, then ordered calmly, "Wrap it exactly as it was, and secretly throw it into her room." This prince wants to see what she performs with those toys tonight. When I woke, I found a suspicious parcel sitting on my table. I was wildly delighted and tore it open. Master, you truly did not abandon your disciple. I devoured the letter, filled with limitless admiration. The assassin pavilion truly had serious resources. Invisibility armor. 1 drunken 1,000 years. That night the blood tiger would achieve great merit and wash away my humiliation. But when I opened the parcel to inspect the mirage veil, the smile on my face froze. Trembling, I lifted it up. Calling it a robe would have insulted robes. It was made of silk so thin that light passed through it clearly. Whoever made it had been absurdly stingy with the fabric. No matter how I looked at it, it covered less than the undergarment I usually wore beneath my clothes. I stood blankly for 5 full minutes, trying to analyze this sacred treasure. Then I slapped my thigh. Of course, Master was profound. Invisibility armor had to be thin and transparent so light could pass through it, allowing the wearer to blend into the surroundings. How could thick clothing make anyone invisible? Master had been right about the 1,000-year spider silk. It felt cool to the touch and almost weightless. The technology was truly revolutionary. With absolute faith in the assassin pavilion, I took a deep breath, removed my maid's clothes, and put on the mirage veil. The thin silk clung closely to me, and cold wind raised goosebumps across my skin. It did feel revealing, but since I was invisible, no one could see me. I slipped the bottle of 1 drunken 1,000 years into the sleeve, opened the door, and began my escape mission. To enhance my invisibility, I pressed my back against the carved wall and moved forward on tiptoe in a crawling pose like a giant gecko. Before I had gone far, I ran into Yansui on patrol. He approached with his sword. He lifted his head, and our eyes met. My heart jumped into my throat. Had I been discovered? Yet Yansui's expression became extremely strange. His eyes widened, his face turned bright red, and he instantly squeezed his eyes shut, covered his face, stumbled back 3 steps, spun around and fled in the opposite direction. I see nothing. I have gone blind. Damn it, if His Highness learns I saw something I should not have, he will gouge out my eyes. After 2 bewildered seconds, I was so happy I nearly laughed aloud. It worked. Jans was so skilled, yet he had run in panic because he thought a ghost was teasing him. That proved he could not see me at all. The invisibility armor was incredible. The blood tiger was invincible. My confidence swelled to its limit. I stopped crawling along the walls, straightened my back, strutted through the courtyard, and even spun around several times to test how smoothly the armor moved. Ahead lay the prince's garden. Lin Lengjing sat in a cool pavilion, drinking tea and reading beneath several dim lanterns. There was my target. I would sneak behind him, pour this sleeping medicine that could put someone to sleep for 3 days with a single drop into his jade teapot, wait for him to collapse into sleep, steal his golden token, and escape with ease. Forget cutting off his head. He had treated me to roast chicken, and I repaid kindness with kindness. I rose on my toes, moved with the confidence of a ninja, past the water lily pond, and headed straight into the pavilion. Because I believed I was invisible, I walked directly before Lin Lengjing and waved my hand in front of his face to tease him. He slowly raised his eyes from his book. His gaze met me, or rather it met the flimsy mirage's veil, which revealed every outline beneath moonlight. His tea-pouring hand stopped. The air seemed to freeze. He set down his book, one eyebrow twitching, and his eyes darkened in an instant, deep as a whirlpool. For a man reputed to remain unmoved even if Mount Tai collapsed before him, Lin Lengjing choked on his tea in a thoroughly undignified fit. He hurriedly turned away, covered his mouth with his sleeve and coughed. The tips of his ears turned red. With my hands clasped behind my back, I watched him with immense satisfaction. See? The power of invisibility combined with my inner strength had released an invisible chill, giving this king of hell a poisonous gust that made him choke on his saliva. He had no idea I was standing right in front of him. The plan was perfect. Smiling the triumphant smile of the strong, I slowly circled behind Lin Lengjing, stretched out my arm, and secretly emptied the entire bottle of 1 drunken 1,000 years into his jade teapot. Once the last drop was gone, I stepped back 3 paces, folded my arms, and waited for the famous regent prince to make a fool of himself. Lin Lengjing remained seated with a book in his hand, though his eyes were not on the words. His Adam's apple moved again and again, and his breathing grew heavier. See? He had not even drunk the medicine, yet my invisible killing aura had already left him breathless. The blood tiger truly stood at the pinnacle of assassins. Pleased with myself, I secretly used my inner strength to send a faint breeze that pushed the teacup toward him. Then I added the ghostly chant I had learned from spirit mediums at the foot of the mountain. Drink it, and sleep for 1,000 years. Lin Lengjing lowered his eyes to the fragrant tea, then looked directly toward where I stood with a gaze as deep as a cosmic black hole. A wicked smile lifted his lips. He reached out with his long sleeve of black silk and raised the jade cup. Of course he knew I had added something. A man for whom poisonings were as routine as meals could never miss such a strange scent. But he wanted to see what trick this foolish rabbit in an outrageously skimpy so-called invisibility armor intended to play. Besides, after the spectacle of that nearly non-existent armor, his throat was genuinely dry. He tilted his head back and drained the jade cup in one swallow. Joy ran through me. Success! I began counting down in my mind, tapping my foot. 3, 2, 1, fall. But Lin Jing did not fall. He remained seated, except that the book in his hand had been crushed into a wrinkled mess. His normally tranquil black eyes became streaked with red. His breaths came fast and heavy, each one hot. His pale skin flushed unnaturally, and beads of sweat appeared on his forehead and slid down over his temples, soaking the collar of his brocade robe. Something began to feel very wrong. Master had said 1 drunken 1,000 years was extremely potent. 1 drop was supposed to make a person sleep for 3 days. What was this? Did someone need to warm up their muscles before sleeping? Then, while I stood there in confusion, Lin Jing abruptly rose. The force of his movement knocked the chair backward with a crash. He strode toward me, radiating heat. His expression no longer held cool mockery. He looked like a starving beast locked in an iron cage that had finally seen prey. Chen Qinglan. His voice was hoarse, each word sounding as though it had been ground between his teeth. What exactly did you make this prince drink? I startled backward. He had called my name. He could see me. Had the cursed invisibility armor failed? I retreated in panic until my back struck a pillar. There was nowhere left to go. My hands shaking, I pulled out the empty bottle and squinted at it beneath the moonlight. The dim glow revealed the label. Under the large characters 1 drunken 1,000 years was a tiny line in Master's shameless scrawl. Supreme bliss powder, finest aphrodisiac of the martial world. 1 drop stokes the body like fire. Use the entire bottle, and without relief within a day and night, the consequences may be fatal. Warning, expired product. Beware of side effects. I stood frozen for 5 seconds. Thunder seemed to strike beside my ears, and my mind stopped working. Master, you deceitful old man. Selling fake medicines was one thing, but he had mixed up a sleeping drug with an aphrodisiac. Did he want his disciple to assassinate someone or dump the consequences of his medicine mix-up on me? This was a catastrophe. I looked up. Lin Jing had already pressed close. Less than half an inch separated us. Heat poured from him, carrying the scent of ambergris and a fierce, frightening urgency. He braced both hands against the pavilion pillar, caging me within the breadth of his chest. His eyes traveled over the revealing mirage veil. Dressed like this, and you poison me with that filthy drug. Does the assassin pavilion now use a beauty trap for assassinations? My face burned as I finally understood why Yan Sui had covered his face and fled. I was not invisible. I had been running around the residence in something barely more than underwear. What humiliation! How could I ever repair it? I stammered and waved my hands before my chest. It is a misunderstanding, a technical error. We are professionals. We never use such cheap tactics. Please endure for a while. I will fetch several beautiful maidservants to help relieve the poison. I tried to duck beneath his arm and flee, but a large burning hand closed around my waist and pulled me against his heaving chest. No need. His breath brushed my ear, leaving half my mind numb. You gave me the medicine, you lit the fire, now you want to walk away? It will not be that easy, Miss Blood Tiger. He lifted me as easily as a chick. His red-rimmed eyes held not only the heat of the drug, but what seemed like a stubborn longing suppressed for a long time. I shut my eyes in fear, certain I was utterly ruined. Then I peeked at him through one eye. Under the dim moonlight, Lin Jing was breathtakingly handsome. A high nose, sharp, beautiful features, and sweat on his forehead that added a wild, dangerous air. His black brocade robe had slipped loose at the collar. Suddenly, my thoughts made a sharp turn. Wait. Why was I afraid? He was handsome, perfectly built, and a prince rich enough to spend money for 3 lifetimes. Compared with the bandits of the martial world who had not bathed in years, he was an absolute prize. Once I saw the matter clearly, the blood tiger's courage returned in a most improper way. I stopped struggling, blinked my wide eyes at him, looped my arms around his neck, rose on tiptoe, and gave him what I believed was my most alluring smile. Your Highness is right. An assassin must take responsibility for what she does. Since you are suffering so much, I will inconvenience myself and personally take responsibility for putting this right. Lin Jing, already suffering from the medicine and prepared to demand a remedy from this foolish rabbit, was stunned by my words. He stared as though he could not believe his ears. This rabbit was volunteering to take responsibility of her own accord. When he did not react, I thought he found me inexperienced. I copied a passage from the cheap romance booklets I had bought at the market, rose on tiptoe, planted a loud kiss on his chin, and tried to look as though I knew what I was doing. Do not worry, I have never practiced, but I have read plenty of theory. I will certainly take good care of you. Lin Lungjing was stunned for exactly 3 seconds. Then his chest shook with a low, hoarse laugh, full of limitless indulgence and helpless amusement at my adorable foolishness. Very well, he said, his voice rough with restraint but his eyes gentle enough to melt. This prince will accept Miss Assassin's assistance. Before I could react, he swept me into his arms and strode toward his bedchamber. The doors shut behind us, and the red silk curtains were lowered, hiding the moonlight beyond. Inside, the night became a comic, disorderly commotion. I cried out when the ties of my mirage veil snapped and protested that it had cost a fortune. Open your mouth, foolish girl, he ordered. I protested that it hurt and complained that master had promised a painless ascension. Finally, I wailed that I was done trying to relieve the poison and only wanted to sleep. Then the lamps went out, keeping the rest of their wild, chaotic night out of sight. On a roof some 30 meters away, Yansui covered his ears and eyes while writing earnestly in his gossip notebook. On this day of this month, His Highness was finally thoroughly claimed by that foolish female assassin. The prince's residence will soon have cause for celebration. The next morning, I woke aching all over as though a herd of wild buffalo had trampled me for 3 days and nights. My limbs felt weak, and even lifting a finger seemed to drain my strength. I opened my eyes hazily and saw a finely carved ceiling. The memories of the previous night flooded back. The invisibility armor, the poison, the aphrodisiac, and that utterly chaotic attempt to resolve the mess. I looked down at myself, wrapped tightly in expensive brocade bedding, and jolted upright. The blood tiger had somehow claimed the devastatingly handsome living king of hell after all. He had tempted me, but looking at the aftermath, I seemed more like the culprit. If he woke and caught me, he would surely make an example of me. Of the 36 stratagems, escape was best. Holding my breath, I slowly lifted one finger at a time and tried to gather my torn clothes to slip away. But before my feet touched the floor, a strong arm reached from behind, circled my waist, and tightened. An irresistible pull sent me back against a man's warm, firm chest. After taking everything from this prince, are you planning to skip out on your debt? His deep, sleepy voice sounded beside my ear. I went rigid and swallowed before turning around. Lin Lungjing was half-propped against the pillows, his black hair loose and dangerously beautiful. He wore only a loosely draped white silk robe, exposing his firm chest and several faint scratch marks I had left. 9 parts of him were seductive and alluring. The final part was deadly danger. How could I skip out on a debt? I stammered, forcing my face into a fawning smile. It is only that dawn has come, and I thought I should boil water and make nourishing tea for your highness. No need. Lin Lungjing gave a cold huff calculation in his smile. He lightly pinched my stiff dimpled cheek. Let us settle accounts. I am the regent prince of Great Yuan, worth more than 10,000 gold. I guarded my purity for 25 years, only to have a female assassin take advantage of me. Tell me, how much silver should compensate my physical and emotional losses? My eyes widened. Taken advantage of? Last night he had plainly been the one who took control later. This king of hell truly excelled at twisting the facts and demanding compensation. Your Highness, I have no money. With a pained expression, I rummaged in the inner pocket of my clothes and produced 2 rusty coins. This is my whole fortune. Could you perhaps treat me like a breeze that passed through your life and forget me? Forget? Lin Lungjing narrowed his eyes and tightened his arm around my waist. Since you cannot pay compensation in silver, repay me by becoming mine. I blinked. Did that mean he wanted me to work as a maid sweeping the house? Lin Lungjing exhaled, flicked my forehead, and looked at me with a mixture of helplessness and indulgent affection. It means becoming my princess consort. Stay in this residence for the rest of your life. I will provide 3 meals a day, and you may take whatever you like from the gold and silver vaults. What do you say? At the words 3 meals a day and gold and silver vaults, my eyes immediately shone. What dangerous martial world, what greatest assassin. Could pride be ground up and eaten? I was already in too deep. With such a powerful patron to cling to, Chen Qinglan's future had reached the summit of glory and wealth. Deal. I clapped my hands, shamelessly threw my arms around his neck and kissed his cheek. From now on, I belong to your highness. You are not allowed to go back on your word or cut my food portions. Lin Lungjing laughed freely and wrapped his arms around my small body. For the first time, warmth like spring appeared in the eyes of that cold-blooded regent. 3 days later, the palace held a grand banquet for meritorious officials. As the newly appointed princess consort of the regent prince, I wore a brilliant red ceremonial robe and phoenix crown. The gold hairpins set with luminous pearls were so heavy they nearly broke my neck. I walked beside Lin Lungjing into the Hall of Supreme Harmony. The noisy great hall instantly fell silent. Every official gaped at the living king of hell's princess consort, who seemed to have appeared from nowhere. No one was more shocked than young Emperor Lin Wu Yu. He was holding a wine cup when he looked up and saw me. His face immediately turned white. His hand shook so hard that the cup crashed to the floor. He pointed at me and stammered, "That dancer is possessed. A monster. Royal uncle, why have you brought that terrifying assassin who dances so horribly into the palace?" "Guards." Lin Lungjing's expression did not change. He calmly swept his robe aside, sat in his usual seat to the dragon throne's right, and pulled me down beside him. He lifted an eyebrow and cleared his throat with icy warning. "Your Majesty, watch your words. This is the princess consort of the regent prince, personally chosen by this prince. She is your aunt by marriage. When you meet an elder, why have you not greeted her?" The young emperor turned to stone. He looked so aggrieved he might cry, but under the sharp, blade-like gaze of his royal uncle, he swallowed his tears and obediently clasped his hands. "This emperor pays his respects to imperial aunt." My interface said, "Mother of the realm," but my operating system was still that of the blood tiger assassin. I gave him a smug grin and swept my sleeve with the swagger of an underworld big sister. "Rise, dog, dear nephew, your majesty. Eat a little more later. Do not crawl under the table again." The young emperor trembled and fell completely silent. Half a month later, an uninvited guest came to the prince's residence. I was lounging on a soft couch in the garden, waiting with my mouth open for Lin Lungjing to peel grapes and feed them to me, when shouting erupted outside. Yan Sui, sword in hand and wearing his usual stone-cold expression, dragged a skinny old man with a scraggly beard by the collar and tossed him into the courtyard. It was none other than my disaster-making master Situ Wanluo. It turned out, master had run out of money on the mountain. Calculating that his disciple must have succeeded in her assassination, he had boldly come to the capital to demand a reward from Lin Lungjing's enemies. He had barely appeared at the city gate when Yan Sui caught him. Master scrambled upright and rubbed his sore backside. Then he looked up and saw an astonishing sight. His disciple Chen Qinglan was dressed in silks and brocades, wearing a costly jade bracelet, and chewing a grape fed to her by the very target he had expected her to assassinate. Master's eyes widened and his mouth fell open. But Master was old and wily. No one could change his tune faster than he could. He dropped to his knees, crawled to Lin Lungjing, and put on a sincere, ingratiating expression. "Your Highness, please judge wisely. This old man never intended to assassinate you. Look, I deliberately taught little Qinglan the ugliest dance in the world, and I secretly swapped the sleeping medicine for the finest supreme bliss powder. My sole purpose was to tie the red thread of fate and act as matchmaker for you two. I am your benefactor." I nearly sprayed grape everywhere. That old man's face was thicker than the city wall. Lin Lungjing calmly took out a silk handkerchief and wiped his fingers. He looked down at Master, who was trembling on the ground, and smiled in a way that chilled everyone to the bone. "So you are the matchmaker who tied our fates." He nodded as though he understood. "You have indeed rendered great service. Yan Sui, have someone reward this man with 100 gold ingots." At the mention of gold, Master's eyes lit up. He kowtowed again and again. "Thank you, your highness. Thank you for your reward." Lin Lungjing's lips curved slightly as he added one final sentence. "But since the matchmaker has worked so hard to bring us together, he should also sample the forbidden fruit. Make him drink 10 bottles of unexpired 1 drunken 1,000 years, tie the 100 gold ingots around his neck, throw him into the largest sow pen outside the city, and instruct the ladies of the pen to take very good care of him." Master froze for 3 seconds. Once his mind processed the combination of an aphrodisiac and a sow pen, he let out a miserable scream, all color leaving his face. "No! Disciple, save me! Qinglan, save your master! I do not want to become a stud for sows." I covered my ears, turned away, and pretended not to know him. Without mercy, Yan Sui grabbed Master by the back of his collar and dragged him away. His pitiful cries echoed beneath the capital's sky. Warm sunlight filled the prince's garden. Peach blossoms opened in full bloom, and delicate petals drifted in the wind onto the brocade robe of the man leaning against the pavilion. I picked up a piece of yam cake, put it into my mouth, rested my chin on Lin Lungjing's shoulder, and sighed from the bottom of my heart. "Your Highness, it is fortunate that my assassination failed. Otherwise, how could I have married a husband so handsome and so outrageously wealthy? I truly am the luckiest assassin in the world." Lin Lungjing laughed, his low magnetic voice sounding beside my ear. He gently pinched my little chin, which had begun to grow a bit rounder. His eyes filled with endless affection. He lowered his head and brushed a kiss over the tip of my nose. "Foolish girl," he said, warm and gentle enough to melt anyone. "For the rest of your life, you do not need to be the blood tiger or any kind of assassin. You may have only one identity, my princess consort, and you have only one task." He leaned close to my ear, his warm breath making it tickle. "Assassinate this prince's heart every day." My face turned scarlet and my heart beat like a drum, but my mouth still refused to lose. "Assassinating your highness's heart is fine, but if I get hungry afterward, you must reward me with 2 more plates of roast chicken legs." Lin Lungjing laughed loudly and held me tight. "You shall have everything."